Welcome to the third hearing of Portfolio Committee number 1, Premier and Finance, for the inquiry into budget estimates 2026-2027. I acknowledge the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, the traditional custodians of the lands on which we are meeting today. I pay my respects to elders past and present and celebrate the diversity of Aboriginal peoples and their ongoing cultures and connections to the lands and waters of New South Wales. I also acknowledge and pay my respects to any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people joining us today. My name is Jeremy Buckingham and I'm the Chair of the Committee. I welcome the President of the Legislative Council, the Honourable Ben Franklin, and accompanying officials to this hearing. Today the Committee will examine the proposed expenditure for the portfolio of the Legislature. I ask everyone in the room to please turn their mobile phones to silent. Parliamentary privilege applies to witnesses in relation to the evidence they give today. However, it does not apply to what witnesses say outside of the hearing. I urge witnesses to be careful about making comments to the media or to others after completing their evidence. In addition, the Legislative Council has adopted rules to provide procedural fairness for inquiry participants. I encourage committee members and witnesses to be mindful of these procedures. Again, to the witnesses, thank you for making the time to give evidence. All witnesses will be sworn prior to giving evidence. Mr. President, I remind you that you do not need to be sworn, as you have already sworn an oath to your office as a member of this Parliament. For all other witnesses, could you please state your name and position title and swear either an oath or affirmation? And I'll begin with Ms. Palmer, please.
Margaret Palmer, I'm the CFO. I swear that the evidence now about to be given by me shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help me God.
Thank you. Mr. Webb.
Mark Webb, Chief Executive of the Department of Parliamentary Services. I solemnly, sincerely and truly declare and affirm that the evidence now about to be given by me shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Thank you, Mr. Webb. Mr. Reynolds.
Stephen Reynolds. I solemnly, sincerely and truly declare and affirm that the evidence now about to be given by me shall be the truth, the whole truth and nothing but the truth.
Mr. Reynolds, could you state your position title?
Clerk of the Parliaments and Clerk of the Legislative Council.
Thank you very much. Today's hearing will be conducted from 9:15am to 1pm with a 15-minute break at 11am. During these sessions there will be questions from the crossbench, opposition and government members, and we will begin with questions from the crossbench. Ms. Boyd, you have 20 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning. I'm going to start with the tricky stuff first. Well, okay, maybe this isn't the tricky stuff, but the website.
Yes.
I have lost track of how many media, as well as members and academics and a whole bunch of other people have expressed a lot of concern about the website. What was the process for designing it? Who was consulted? How did that work?
Look, I'll obviously throw to Mr. Webb. I guess I'd just make a couple of preliminary remarks in that the website was over 15 years old, clearly not fit for purpose anymore, clunky, needed to be fixed and upgraded. Now, obviously, we've had some feedback that there are some challenges, and Mr. Webb will discuss those and the process specifically. But I guess the point that I want to make is this is an ongoing process. We are very enthusiastic about ensuring that the website provides the functionality that all members and those from the broader community, and in fact, frankly, anybody within New South Wales and broader requires. And we encourage people to continue to provide their feedback, as has happened deeply already, and we'll continue to address those. So I want to make that very clear up front. This is the website, it's done and dusted. We're going to continue to respond to those sorts of issues. But Ms. Webb, I might throw to you on those specifics.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for the question. Yes, I do acknowledge we've received a lot of feedback. People have been very generous with that feedback and sending it through, as well as a lot of very positive feedback as well. Just as an example of that, It used to be with petitions that's only 7 out of 10 people who started a petition entry finished a petition entry in the old website. In the new website, 9 out of 10 people who start a petition entry finish that petition entry. So there has been a lot of positive feedback as well as opportunities for improving the website. In terms of the consultation, which is a specific question that you asked about, we were working to a deadline of being able to replace the old website by July. In that deadline, we did consult with as many people as we could in order to meet that deadline, including internal consultation with House Department people on the project to help make sure that we were fulfilling those requirements. People like the Ethics Advisor, the Premier's Department, the Cabinet Office, parliamentary councils and other people there. We communicated with members about what was coming up, and we've tried to implement as best we can all of those requirements.
So you didn't consult with members or member staff
in
terms of design and functionality?
I think the feedback that we've got is that we didn't consult enough with members and member staff. We did consult with.
There were, for example, 3 public sessions on the 19th of May, the 27th of May, and the 2nd of June, where all members of the parliamentary community were invited to come and engage on it.
Okay. Yeah. Did they engage? Did members of Parliament
I don't have the numbers of exactly how many people, but that's why we ran 3 of them, was to try and maximise the amount of time for people to engage.
Because it strikes me that there's kind of 3 aspects of this website which are different to what you might get in other places. Obviously, there's that public interface, and as you say, there's the petition side, and there's the need for people who are coming to visit to know what's on and all of that, and absolutely that needed updating. I think we can all agree on that. Then there's the vast majority of the users, I would imagine, are people in Parliament and journalists and academics who use it as a workspace. And so most of us would spend hours and hours of our everyday interacting with the committee side of things, with inquiries, with Hansard records, etc., like so many times every day. And then there's the kind of the fact that Hansard is an official primary record in a way that doesn't appear in other people's websites. And I did raise this, and it's been addressed to an extent, but the fact that all the links broke across every academic journal and across everybody's cross-references to Hansard was a disaster from a kind of an academic research perspective, but also in terms of all of us in our offices work with, I'm not sure about every office, but our office certainly works with multiple interlocking spreadsheets that are linked to bits of Hansard so that we can draw up at a moment's notice what we need for estimates or for whatever. So when it comes to things like that sort of workspace and records bit, the very fact that you have so much white space when you're scrolling is the most irritating thing in the world, and actually is creating a huge amount of extra time that people are needing to spend. That sort of thing looks lovely for a public interface, but if it were for an ongoing workspace, it just doesn't work. And so I guess the question is, well, the assertion I'm making is that those kind of errors could have been corrected in the design phase had there been a really involved understanding of what we all use the website for, which I feel wasn't done. So you say there was a time limit or a deadline of July, but why?
Yeah, that's my question.
So the product that our old website was on was heading end of life. We were notified of that, unfortunately, a little late in the piece, and so it would not continue to work after mid-July. So we had to move as quickly as we could. The original timeframe for the website, and the projects will still be going on for another year, the original timeframe was to deliver it in about a year's time and to go through a much more comprehensive process of consultation. Because of this unexpected piece of news that came through to us, we had to work to a tighter timeline. Otherwise we wouldn't have had a website that would operate effectively. So we made the decision to do the first phase as quickly as we could, and then we are still going to spend the same amount of time upgrading and enhancing the website. I would say on the white space issue, if I could go back to that, you've characterised it as us trying to make the website look nice, but that's of course not entirely accurate. The reason the white space is there is because the website now meets accessibility standards, and that's the primary purpose of the way that the website is laid out at the moment, not just a fad in website design to include a lot of white space. You have touched on, though, probably one of the primary pieces of feedback that we've got, which is that practitioners, both within the Parliament and people, say, in ministers' offices or department liaison officers in departments and the like, would prefer to have a version of the view that has more information on the one screen. And that is something that we're working on at the moment. So there will be ability to switch between a couple of different views for each of the...
I was going to say, because that's normally the fix.
Yeah.
I'm all for accessibility, as you
That's
know,
right.
but
Yes, that's
normally
right.
there's an option.
There will be, and that's absolutely what we're working for. The other piece of primary feedback we've got is that the old website, quite frankly, was awful and caused a lot of issues for a lot of people. But people worked out a lot of workarounds for those issues. So, for instance, bringing up a whole table of things and using Control F, the website find function rather than the search function of the website. This is how people sort of work their way around the fact that the old website had awful search capability. Of course, the new website has excellent search capability. We're finding about 40%. About 40% of the queries that come in, we are able to show people a different way of achieving the same outcome that they used to, and that's fantastic. But the rest of them are either in things that we need to change about the way the website works, in particular that layout issue, or in some cases we've had a lot of things people have brought up which weren't in the old website and aren't in the new website, but people would like to see as enhancements to the website, and that's fantastic. Like we're really seeking that kind of input and engagement about how we'll be able to enhance the website into the future as well.
Thank you. And I don't want to, as with all of these sorts of projects, there's always some good things in there, and that's really good. And eventually, over time, when all the other things are fixed, we'll all go, oh, that's really a good function. But I can't underestimate just the level of stress that the website change has caused, particularly in mine and my colleagues' offices. Like the amount of extra time my staff have had to work every day at those beginning stages before there was the workaround for Hansard. Like just it was of nightmare proportions. So that hence my my.
And Ms. Boyd, can I say we absolutely appreciate that and we accept that. Clearly, there could have been better consultation. Clearly, it would have been ideal if it had gone on for longer. Unfortunately, because of the reasons Mr. Webb expressed, that wasn't possible. But please know that for not only your office but for everybody, if there are issues, there are details on every page of the website about how to seek help. There's obviously the ITS who are ready to go all the time in terms of providing advice. It may well be that there are easy solutions to problems, and it may not be, and there may need to be things that are fixed. And our commitment is that we will do everything that we can to ensure that it is not only as good as the old one in terms of functionality with those workarounds, but significantly better, and we'll continue to do that. It'll be an ongoing process.
Can I ask how much the project cost?
Yes. So last year plus this year, and so the cost I'm about to say will include all the work over the remainder of the year to continue to enhance the website.
The financial year? So the
the financial year,
yep.
yes, sorry, financial year. The total cost over those 2 years is $5.8 million.
Are you kidding?
Order.
That's a lot more than I thought you were going to say.
Don't forget that includes not just the development of the website, but the ongoing licensing costs and hosting costs and the rest as well.
So in terms of ongoing costs, what was the ongoing annual cost for the old website?
I don't have that information in front of me, sorry.
If you could maybe take that on notice, just so
I'll
we
see
can
if I
sort
can
of
get it
see
before
how much of that is actual because it's new and how much of it is ongoing licensing and things. And then from what you're saying, then you do have the budget to continue to perfect and improve over the next 9 months or so.
That's exactly right. Yeah, the budget, we put the budget in to do a full 2-year project, and it continues to the end of the year, which will include enhancements and the like.
Okay, and will you be including, like, will there be an opportunity, for example, for an all kind of user survey or something? Obviously not right now because you're still ironing out issues, but at certain points.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, in fact, we are actually going to do an initial user survey at the end of this week. We're going to put something around to get initial feedback. We'll follow that up with further surveying as people get used to the new site moving on. As you know, we had the Ask Me desks up and running through the last sitting period. That'll continue into the September sitting period as well. We have done one-on-one sessions with individual officers. Each office does work slightly differently, and so we've tried to put the general help support on the help and support page. If you look at the very top of the website in the banner, at the top there's a help and support button. It has things like frequently asked questions, user guides, etc. We're adding to that all the time as people come up with different scenarios for how they use the website, and we'll continue to do that. We're also doing a lot of optimization. So one of the great things about the new platform, so if we ignore the website for a moment, the new platform is much more configurable than the old platform was. It used to take us, it could take literally years for us to make upgrades. You would have seen in the last few weeks a series of updates to the website. So, for instance, there is just in the last couple of days, an advanced Hansard search was introduced that specifically focused on searching Hansard. We will continue to add to that advanced Hansard search, but we've been able to turn that around in a couple of weeks, whereas with the old website it would literally take months or sometimes years to make updates as well. Another example of that is that we're monitoring in an anonymised way how people are using the search. One of the things that came up is a lot of people search on the term QON, questions on notice. There is no, if you look across the website, QON is not mentioned anywhere. It's always spelled out as questions on notice. And so the search is configurable enough that we were able to go in and essentially say Q on N equals questions on notice and enhance the search so that people searching on Q on N would get questions on notice output coming through.
In contrast to QAnon, which is another thing.
That's exactly right. There may be.
Glad you clarified.
Can I also just make one final comment? So this survey will go out. That'll give everybody the opportunity to provide specific individual feedback, but people shouldn't assume that that's the only opportunity as well. They are welcome to make an individual communication to express their own personal concern.
Thank you.
At any time.
Thank you. And I do feel I've been a bit critical, so I do need to say that you know how appreciative I am of the staff in this building, but I did want to give you the feedback that those new toilets on level 11 have made such a huge difference.
Oh, that's great.
Not being able to have to queue at the women's toilets and having enough toilets for women. Thank you.
We don't get to chat anymore, Abigail.
We don't get to chat as much while we're waiting.
You see, these estimates do achieve things.
See?
I think it was
There
the
you
very
go.
first estimates where you raised the number of female toilets on level 11.
I went on and I presented you with all
You
of
did.
the safe work guidelines and everything. Anyway, so we fixed that. So
I'm
that's
delighted.
good. All right, good.
And we'll fix this.
Yes, we will. Okay, on to something a bit thornier then. So the Members of Parliament staff determination, the new role descriptions came out. How were those new descriptions determined in terms of, I know that there was some town hall meetings and there were some things over the years, but when that draft was made, what consultation was done on that particular draft with staff?
I mean, obviously there was a significant amount of consultation, in fact, a lot of consultation broadly, and so after all of those, and I mean I can go through each of them, but we've talked of those. After all of that, we landed where with that outcome. Mr. Webb might have more to comment on, but we felt that was then more reflective of the actual roles and responsibilities that were undertaken by staff. Mr. Webb, I don't know if you want to add anything specific.
So you would have seen the updates that were released in the most recent determination that came through. That was all based on feedback we received through the consultation process, and it was this round of role descriptions was designed to better reflect the tasks that people did. So everything in the role description, the list of tasks that people can work on, that all came directly out of the consultation process. You would have also noticed there was some feedback where people had said that it wasn't necessarily clear that that list of potential skills or tasks was a smorgasbord that could be selected from, not a comprehensive list of everything that one must master in order to be either a research assistant or an electorate officer. And so we've included that phrasing in the role description as well, just to make it clear that it is that.
Just on that bit, because some of the concerns that I've heard concern the lack of dishes on that smorgasbord. For example, the role description for Legislative Council members' staff makes no mention of speech writing, legislative drafting instructions, inquiry questions, press releases, liaising with media. Like, all of those things are left out. So I appreciate that it's a non-exhaustive list, and you don't have to meet all of them. But there were some critical ones that people felt were left out, and they're sort of worried that undervalues their role.
Interesting, because everything that was mentioned through the consultations was included. Like, we didn't cut out anything. We didn't sort of say, oh no, we don't think that should be included or not included. So I will talk to the team out of session, but I would have to venture that it must not have been mentioned in the consultation, which is that might be a limitation of what we've done if people didn't mention things in the consultation process. I should keep in mind these role descriptions there was a request that in advance of sort of reevaluating jobs and the like, because there was a budget implication to that we try to modernise the role description to be more reflective of current practice. So there is another opportunity over the next to add things to it when it comes to, we'll have to obviously put a budget bid together for both this and obviously the recent PRT determination does add a layer of complexity depending on what the legislative outcome is of current considerations. But we'll be putting in a budget bid this year, which is the first available window to us in order to take into account re-looking at the role descriptions, the new, if the amendments of the Legislative Council are held through the process, the new positions coming out of the PRT, and if that was to occur also, there are physical changes to both this precinct, to the electorate office network and the like that would also have to be incorporated as well. So we're putting together a comprehensive budget bid to cover all of those areas. So there is an opportunity, and I would say to anyone looking at the role descriptions, if you do think there are things missing from the list of tasks, please send it through to us. There is absolutely an opportunity to add to those role descriptions.
I mean, we're never going to be able to encapsulate everything that a staff member does. Having been a former staff member myself, I'm very well aware of that. That having been said, the sorts of issues that you've just raised there seem to me absolutely sensible to go in. So we encourage everybody to give us that feedback.
So just with the final few seconds, the capabilities descriptors that are included that are similar to the what we have with the public service, accompany those updated role descriptions. How were the capabilities required for each role arrived at?
So this is a little bit of a specialised skill, and so we took people who were very well versed in the public sector capability framework, looked at all the feedback from people and used those to do that initial evaluation. But as I say, there is a real opportunity if people want to challenge any of that to come back and say to us, this is one of the reasons why we didn't wait for the budget bid before we put these role descriptions out. They were put out as an interim measure so that people could come to us and say, actually, you know what, we think that capability is too high, too low. We think there's a skill that's not listed on that. All of that is absolutely open because we won't evaluate it from a budgetary point of view until we're putting the budget bid together later in the year. So please, if there is anything missing there, if you think the capability framework is an excellent tool that the Public Service Commissioner created and has refined over the years. We are very aware that it's not ideally designed for people that work in a member's office. But one of the strong pieces of feedback we got is that people wanted equivalence with the public sector. They wanted these roles to be evaluated to be equivalent to the public sector. So we needed to find a way of bridging into that capability framework, because that's the basis on which public sector roles are evaluated at the moment. We are very open to any feedback that says, no, we think that's too high, too low. I'm also conscious, and this is a limitation of the capability framework, when you combine it with that smorgasbord approach. Like, I don't want to be breezy about all of this, but they don't quite line up 100% between each other. So, for instance, we might say capability around project management needs to be here, but for an individual research assistant, they might have no project management responsibilities, whereas the next person might have to do quite advanced project management. So there's an averaging effect as well on the capabilities, which I'm very conscious of, that not every research assistant's going to read the capability framework descriptors and say, oh yes, that represents my role. It is a sort of an averaging effect in there as well for the purposes of evaluating the jobs. But we are very open to feedback. If there is any feedback that we incorporate, we will use that in the incorporated role description before we do any financial evaluation of them. And once we get to that point, I'd be very happy for us to circulate those role descriptions with all of any feedback incorporated for a final check with members and staff before we actually do the financial evaluation as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Webb. Mr. Fang.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. President.
Mr. Fang.
The first topic I want to raise with you is the issue of Cullen versus the President.
Sure.
Yeah, I can see you already turning straight to the tab 1, I imagine.
It in fact is 1A.
There you go. I'm not surprised. Obviously, for those of us in the Legislative Council in particular, the issue of our ability to compel witnesses has been somewhat curtailed by the Cullen versus the President ruling with the New South Wales Court of Appeal. In terms of the original decision, the first thing I want to...
The decision of the Court of
Court of Appeal in New South Wales. Is it correct that costs were awarded against the Legislative Council?
Look, I will throw to Mr. Reynolds on this. I'm not trying to prevaricate, but my understanding is yes. Although the number hasn't actually been determined yet because of the appeal now going to the High Court. Is that correct?
Yes, it is. Costs were awarded against us. In an estimates hearing in the last round, I think the Attorney-General said that the costs were around $250,000, but I don't know how he defined that.
And that was in terms of Mr. Cullen's costs that were funded by the Attorney-General through...
the government rates.
Yes, and that was done by the Secretary of the Department of Communities and Justice, is that correct? Who made the determination?
I don't recall that, but I'd have to check the transcript. Yeah.
Okay. Now, $250,000 is... that would be indemnity costs if it was... so the total cost of the action, is that correct?
Those sort of questions you'd probably have to ask the attorney, because obviously we don't have any visibility of that. I'm just
no. I guess I'm. So was it indemnity costs that were awarded to Mr. Cullen through the New South Wales Court of Appeal, or scaled costs?
All I can really say is that there was a costs order given against us, but that hasn't been called upon because there's been an appeal.
Okay. That was actually the next question I was going to ask is, obviously there has been the appeal, but the Mr. Cullen, I'll say, via his grant from the government, hasn't actually collected, I'll say, the costs as awarded yet. Is that correct?
No, because of the appeal.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, in terms of where those costs go, what would happen in the case where we pay Mr. Cullen's costs?
I don't know. Reynolds, do you?
No, all I can really say is that we would pay it from Parliament's budget. Where it then goes, it's really a question you have to ask.
We'd fulfil the legal obligations that we have after the court has determined.
Because Mr Cullen's been given a grant by the government, and even though I guess the case is in his name, it's been, I understand, fully funded by the government in terms of a grant from the Department of Communities and Justice. Now, do the costs return to the Department of Communities and Justice in places where a grant has been given to an individual, or given that it is in Mr Cullen's name, does Mr Cullen collect $250,000 for having taken us to court?
It's an interesting question, but obviously not one that we can answer. I mean, we fulfil our legal responsibilities in terms of if we're required to pay costs, we'll do so. What happens after that is probably more appropriately a question for the Attorney General or other matters. But I understand the point you're making. We just can't answer the question.
Yeah, I mean, do we make out a cheque to Mr James Cullen, or who do we make the cheque out to? Like, this is quite seriously a question that I'm wondering, given that Mr Cullen's effectively being given a fully funded New South Wales government grant to take the Legislative Council to court to stop effectively all witnesses appearing at Legislative Council, and indeed any parliamentary inquiry where they seek to compel a witness.
Yeah, I mean, as I say, we'll fulfil our legal obligations. In terms of those other issues, it's probably best directed at the Attorney General.
And in terms of Mr Daly being, I guess, the Attorney General who, where a party would make an application to seek a grant from the government to have to have funding for a legal challenge or a legal case, has the Parliament sought a similar grant from the Attorney General? I asked a similar question in the last estimates, and I think it was indicated that it was an interesting question and something to think about. And I'm now putting it again and wondering, one, have we thought about it? And two, given that we've just talked about the enormous costs of this case and what it's doing to the budget of the New South Wales Parliament, have we sought to have a similar grant from the Department of Communities and Justice approved by the Attorney General?
Mr Reynolds?
No, we haven't, but at the same time we haven't been required to pay that yet either, so it could still be a live issue.
Okay.
I'm not sure what our chances of success would be.
Well, it depends on how fair the government is, but that might be a question for the Attorney General. In terms of the impact that this has had...
the financial impact?
Well, no. I would say more the transparency impact
on
the Parliament. Has chairs of committees raised issues with you, Mr President?
Yes, is the short answer. I mean, there's been more feedback given, I think, to Mr Reynolds than to me, and he's, because he sees all of the committees, has more transparency over it. But certainly, I've obviously had conversations regarding, of particular note is Mr James Honeywell, Mr James O'Brien, my apologies,
from
Mr
Honeywell,
James O'Brien, who is at Honeywell,
yes,
who would have been the witness for Portfolio Committee number 2. I think we're all aware of that,
yes,
regarding Calvary Mother Hospital, but his legal representatives actually cited the Cullen decision and stated as a result Mr O'Brien couldn't be compelled to appear. That's one example. There have been a number of other examples I'm aware of, including Portfolio Committee number 5, the Public Accountability and Works Committee, Portfolio Committee number 1, this committee in fact. But Mr Reynolds might have some more comments. But yes, I'm aware that there is increasing concern about this. And my point that I would make, that I'd reiterate, I think I might have made this possibly in response to questioning from you, Mr Fang, last budget estimates, is the problem, and I'm not in any way making any suggestions about any of the people, either the individual I've cited or the specifics I've just cited, but the problem with this broadly is that the people who we particularly need to appear and want to appear I suspect are the ones going to be most likely to avail themselves of the opportunity not to appear because of this, which gives me significant concern. But Mr Reynolds, you might have more to add.
So the President's already mentioned the PC5 inquiry into identity protections, and with 3 key witnesses that declined to appear, citing the Cullen case. The Public Accountability and Works Committee inquiry into data centres. We've had numerous organisations decline to appear, or either just not responding to invitations. That committee's review of the Electric Vehicles Revenue Arrangements Act. We had 4 government agencies declining to appear, and 3 declined again when re-invited for an alternate date, although Minister Houssos and the Treasurer did agree to appear eventually. Portfolio Committee number 3, inquiry into Redeemer Baptist School. The school principal declined to give evidence, noting that the school was strongly advised not to appear due to concerns that the inquiry would not provide procedural fairness. Portfolio Committee number 1, a statutory office holder declined to appear on the grounds they're not a public servant for the purposes of budget estimates. And the Select Committee on the failure of the playing service at Allianz Stadium, a number of witnesses declined to appear. Now, obviously, some of those witnesses gave different reasons for not appearing, so we can't necessarily assume that it was because of the decision in Cullen, but it's all against the background that I think witnesses now, it's widely known that they can't be compelled to attend.
Mr President, when the original decision from the New South Wales Court of Appeal was handed down, you indicated that you would be looking to work across the Parliament to ensure that those powers were restored as quickly as possible. There's obviously been a bill that's passed the Legislative Council, which now sits in the Legislative Assembly, which is one way it would appear that those powers could be restored. There's also the government has an opportunity to make its own bill, and put it towards the House and see if that's passed and acceptable. Has the Premier or the Leader of the government in the Legislative Council provided any feedback to you about why the government is not prioritising the bill in the lower house and why they voted against it, or why it is that they've not actually sought to address the matter?
Excuse me, Mr Fang. Mr Namver on a point of order, I believe.
Chair, my point of order goes to relevance under the procedural fairness resolution. This is an inquiry into the estimates of expenditure from the Consolidated Fund or into the budget papers or related documents. I don't know how any conversations that may or may not have been had with the Leader of the government in the Legislative Council is relevant to that inquiry.
Well, to the point of order, Chair, it's entirely relevant because, one, the President is here to answer questions about the expenditure to Parliament. We've already spoken about the cost of this case, and the case is necessitated because there's been a ruling that was brought by from a case that was brought by the Premier's Chief of Staff, but 2, the President himself indicated that he would be seeking to work cross-party, so I'm seeking to understand what work has occurred cross-party to try and alleviate the cost burden of the legal challenge and the cases that are before us at the moment.
Yeah, I don't uphold the point of order. It's clearly relevant to the activities of...
Nice try, Bob.
Yeah, and I'm really happy to engage in this. I think it's actually a very important issue. No, look, I think that the key point here is that with the appeal, that is obviously the first port of call, right? Because if we actually win the appeal, then that means that the legislation is then valid once more, and therefore everything else, the current legislation, everything else then becomes moot. So I suspect that, that's clearly the first thing that's I suspect, put the brakes a bit on other people considering the legislation and so on. But no, look, I reiterate the same point, Mr. Fang, that my suspicion is when we have the hearing is on the 11th and 12th, I believe, September.
10th and
11th of September, so only in a couple of weeks' time, we'll have the, we will, I would hope, have the outcome by the end of the year, and hopefully before Parliament rises. And my suspicion is that if the outcome is not one that upholds the current legislation, then there will be a significant and great focus in looking at new legislative avenues, and that's certainly something that I'll be engaged in very deeply.
Thank you. So in terms of, I guess, an update, and you've provided part of the update, knowing that we've got, again, 2 days on the 10th and the 11th
Yes.
in the High Court, where the appeal against the decision in the New South Wales Court of Appeal will be heard.
Yep.
Can you provide a little bit more of an update in terms of where our case sits and where the response from the other party is, and whether all material has been filed or if there's more filing to occur? Can you provide a bit more
Sure, very
granular
happy
detail?
to. I might throw to Mr. Reynolds, but my understanding is that everybody is up to date in terms of what they need to do, but I'll throw to Mr. Reynolds to give some more specifics on where we currently are.
Okay. The application for special leave was lodged with the High Court Registry on 20th of January, and it was granted on the 12th of March. As we've said, the appeal is set down for 2 days early next month. All the submissions from all parties have been lodged, so we're just waiting on the court case. I understand, and I'll correct this if it's not the case, that all those submissions can be viewed on the via the court's registry.
They can.
They can. There's a number of interveners in the case, attorney generals from various states, all intervening on the side of Mr. Cullen.
Okay. And is it true that the Attorney General has supported, through an intervention, the case of Mr. Cullen in the High Court?
Yes, he's one of the interveners.
Okay. In terms of the cost to date, do you have a cost of what this case has cost us?
Yes, I thought you might ask that.
I was looking at the time and I was just saving it to the end. It's like, you know.
I'll be a bit more specific than just saying
last time
a lot.
I think we said a lot.
Yes, no.
We actually have a number.
And I think you had to go away and actually find the bit of paper that had all the zeros on it.
It is a lot.
Yeah.
Okay, so the first stage of the case, which was Cullen v President, the total cost of that to us was $443,517.94.
Sorry, could you just say that again?
$443,517.94, including GST.
Okay.
But that obviously doesn't include the payment of costs to Mr. Cullen.
Yes.
Yeah. Then, following the decision of the House to appeal, we're now talking about President v Cullen. Now, we get billed at the end of each month, so this figure is for up to the end of July. So far, it has cost $384,620.15, including GST.
Has there been an estimate as to what the case itself will cost? The 2 days?
Not that would still be accurate. When we advised the lawyers that we were going to appeal, we got an estimate of what the whole thing was going to cost, but that I guess the figure's been blown out because of the number of interveners in the case, with 4 or 5 interveners.
Okay. In circumstances where other parties seek costs, I think it's usual that they would table expected costs or their costs to date? Has that occurred in this case?
No.
No. So will Mr Cullen and those parties that have sought to intervene in the matters seek costs orders against us should the judgment not go the way of the Legislative Council? Is that what we're expecting?
From my understanding, and I'll check this and correct it if it's not accurate, most of the interveners aren't seeking costs, but my understanding is that Mr Cullen would be seeking costs.
Okay. And the Attorney General?
Well, one of the interveners, I'll check it, but I don't think he's seeking, I don't think the Attorney General's seeking costs from us.
Okay. And has the Speaker sought to intervene in the matter?
Not in this.
No, not in this case.
No.
He did in the Court of Appeal matter, but not in the High Court.
Yes. Okay. So I'll come back to, I guess, the last question, which sort of goes back to the first question that I asked, is potentially what is the costs order that could be awarded to Mr Cullen, assuming that he is still under the same government grant and is being fully funded by the Department of Communities and Justice by the Secretary, a decision by the Secretary on the petitioning of the Attorney General?
Is the question what amount of money? Or?
Yes, how much is Mr Cullen potentially going to be awarded, and what happens to that grant, what happens to those costs if awarded, given that he's it's in his personal name, but it's a fully funded grant from the New South Wales government that's paying for all his legal fees.
Yeah. So in terms of the dollar amount, obviously we don't know. We'll only know if that cost order is applied. And in terms of the second point, I'd just refer you to my previous answer. We can't answer that question.
Thank you, Mr President. Thank you, Mr Fang. The government.
Do I get some now, Debbie? Oh, fantastic.
Dr Kane.
Dr Kane.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hello.
For being here. Nice to see you all. Hard to know where to begin because Ms Boyd...
so much.
Boyd kicked some of mine off really well. There is so much. I guess I wanted to just pick up a few loose ends from the website. I just wondered, so this idea that the website was going to become obsolete at a particular date and that took us by surprise. Just wondering, who do we get to manage our IT? How could we be taken by surprise? And what kind of accountability has there been or will there be to whoever it is that meant it was a surprise to us?
Mr Webb?
Yeah. No, that's an excellent question, and one that we've been talking about a lot internally. In order to answer it, if you can indulge me in about a minute's worth of history, and then I'll get directly to answer your question.
Mr Webb, but I'm a bit strict on a minute because we haven't got much time.
Okay, yes, of course. So I think, as many of you know, the Parliament has underinvested in technology for a long period of time, and that has started to turn around over the last few years. So one of the reasons why we have a 15-year-old platform for the website or a 25-year-old platform for our ERP system is that long-term underinvestment. For many years, and this is the history part, for many years there was so little money in technology, quite frankly, all of it went into just keeping the lights on and things running, which means the thing that hadn't happened was long-term planning for our technology platform, all of our technology platforms. I am very pleased to say we are turning that around. We have done a significant amount of work over the last couple of years in particular to map out all of our systems and start to see when they hit end of life and the like. This came out of some of those processes where we were mapping everything out, getting on top of it for the first time, which is fantastic. But in this particular case, it meant we were suddenly faced with a situation. So there is an internal accountability, and ultimately I'm responsible for that.
Okay, because with respect, it's a pretty big thing to not have on a map, isn't it?
Yeah.
The sort of redundancy of a system that's going to cost $6 million to change. So do we have external IT consultants who have been the people that we have been relying on?
I mean, we do across quite a few of our technology platforms, like most government agencies or private sector firms. A lot of stuff has moved into the cloud over the last few years. We had moved the what would you say? We'd moved the infrastructure of the website into the cloud, but the licensing and the like was still being managed internally, and that's why this mapping process caught it very late in the piece, later than it should have. I don't want to pretend to you that you're absolutely right. We should have known about it much earlier than we did. We are now in a position where we have mapped out all of our technology platforms, so this kind of thing wouldn't happen again. But this is probably the last remnants of the old way of doing things, which did take us more by surprise than it should have. And I am ultimately accountable for that.
I mean, I don't want to harp on it, and Ms. Boyd went through the details, but it's quite a large oversight that has had really big ramifications for all of us using the website. But also, I mean, I'm sorry, but $6 million seems like an immense amount of money to spend. Is any of that, and I know you're saying it's over time, but was there a need to front load the spend because of that urgency?
Oh yes, absolutely. So the keep in mind we pulled some money out of this current year into last year in order to get through that initial platform development as quickly as we could. So you're quite right about that. The ongoing maintenance of the website obviously is significantly lower than that. So I don't want anyone to walk away from this thinking we'd be spending $6 million every 2 years in perpetuity. This was the work to take a very old website and redevelop it. For instance, the ongoing licensing costs for the underlying product once we get through this initial implementation is about $200,000 a year. So it is very much a one-off. I guess one of the things we've tried to do though is pick a platform where we can make modifications as we go, as opposed to being dependent on external people.
Thank you, I appreciate that. I'm just conscious that I know my colleagues also have questions.
Yeah.
I wondered if I could ask you about some of the employment relationships in Parliament. Why is it that in Hansard we have quite a number of fixed-term contracts when the work of Hansard is known? So it's not a sort of casual labour hire situation where we might have a peak in inquiries. We have, as I understand it, quite a significant number of Hansard staff on multi-year contracts. Why would that be necessary?
Look, I mean, I'll make some brief remarks first. My understanding, and Mr. Webb can correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is that part of the challenge is that we're only funded for Hansard on often year-by-year bases, and so we're not able to provide that. It's not an ongoing funding commitment that we have from the government, and so we'd be very encouraging of you to speak to the Treasurer about ensuring that that's an ongoing funding commitment.
But, Mr. President, Mr. Webb, there's discretion with how you spend the DPS budget. We've just had $6 million outlaid in a website that we didn't know needed to be upgraded.
We knew it needed to be upgraded.
Yeah, but we didn't know
the time frame was perhaps more truncated than we would
So why couldn't you consider your budget and think about, you're going to need Hansard? Are you suggesting, this is a very big worry if that's the case, that Hansard need to be worried about their job
absolutely.
security?
Absolutely.
Okay, so is it that you could make some choices within your budgets to make sure that they were permanent? And obviously, you would like more money out of the Treasurer.
I've made inquiries about this. I'm comfortable about Mr. Webb's answers, which he's about to give, in terms of the ongoing employment situation of the Hansard people. And no, they should not be worried at all. Let me make it very clear to the Hansard people either watching or listening, or in fact transcribing this. Your jobs are secure. We are deeply grateful for everything you do, and very, very appreciative.
They're secure, but we won't put them on a
and look, I was being slightly cheeky in terms of the political point, but it is a point that we would like about ongoing funding for Hansard rather than year by year. I make that point to the Treasurer or the Finance Minister when they're reading it, but for the specific issue, I might throw to Mr Webb.
So you're quite right, we do have discretion on how to spend the budget, but to make those Hansard people permanent, I would have to make somebody else temporary. I fully utilise the budget that I have available to me for staff. I have a certain amount of permanent budget and a certain amount of temporary budget. The case for making the Hansard funding permanent is a strong case, and it's one that I've made every year for the last, as the numbers have increased. We have about 20 Hansard people who are on permanent arrangements because we have that permanent funding, and about 14 or 15 who are on temporary arrangements because we have temporary funding.
So Mr Webb, that's about, what, 40% plus, on contracts that are renewed yearly?
Yeah, based around
and
the funding.
How long does that go on for? Because I've been told there are people that have been on contracts for up to 4 years. Is that right?
So 10 years ago when I started, Hansard was about 20 people. It was in the 2015 to 2019 parliamentary term. Committee activity wasn't anywhere near what it is at the moment. That 20 people was sufficient for the work. So the increase since then, since that 20 people, has been all based around primarily around the committee activity that's come primarily out of the upper house with the change in the nature.
So when do they get to become permanent, or do they just stay on a yearly contract every year?
So there's been a couple of times when I've managed to get multi-year funding, in which case we've given people multi-year contracts. So we've always tried to align the contracts with the funding that we've got. So if we get 3 years worth of funding, we offer 3-year contracts. If we get 1 year's worth of funding, we offer 1-year contracts. And that's, look, the Hansard numbers have been growing over the last 10 years, but so it didn't jump straight from 20 to 35. It went up progressively over time. But everyone above that core 20 people has been on some form of temporary contract. And every
is
year
that consistent with the government sector employment rules? I mean, it talks about a maximum of 4 years that you can keep renewing a contract without asking for permission from the Commissioner.
We're not,
is that what's happened in
we're
that
not
case,
covered by the
not
Government
covered?
Sector Employment Act, so no.
So if these people were working anywhere else in the public service, by
wouldn't
now
have to-
they'd be permanent employees, right?
I would have to check that, I'm sorry. Well, they would have been permanent employees, or there would have been turnover. Like someone would have got 4 years worth
If
of
they
work, and then
hadn't
they
left.
would have got somebody else to get 4 years worth of
Could
work.
I ask one last question on this? So, and clearly, clearly my view is that we should have permanent employees where we can. But how is it determined that Hansard is the area of DPS that has to have the temporary contracts? Who made that decision, and how is that sort of distributed across the services of Parliament? Because it's a fairly arbitrary decision that it's Hansard. It seems fairly arbitrary that that's a line item that's separately funded. So how is it that that group of workers is particularly affected as opposed to others? Or are you going to tell me that all staff and that there's this whole lot of permanent...
No, there are different... so the direct answer to your question is because there's been such massive growth in Hansard. It's because there's been, 10 years ago there were 20 people, there are now 35. But
there's been an equal growth in committee staff as well.
Yes, and the committee staff aren't all... the committee staff are also funded temporarily as well. This is an absolute issue. I also have to give regard to where I have stronger cases. If I made a whole bunch of people in finance and HR temporary so that I could make a whole bunch of people in Hansard permanent, from my point of view, I haven't fixed the problem. The problem is still there. My case for making Hansard funding is stronger than some of those other areas, and so because there's been demonstrated growth, I can show the growth in the activity. I have data, metrics, statistics, all of which I've put in every year for the last 10 years. I've put in a bid for permanent funding for the Hansard team. The Hansard team know that I've done that. I understand and absolutely respect the fact that people on temporary arrangements would prefer permanent arrangements. I want that too for them. But the approach to engaging with the Treasury process to try and get funding is something that I do every year. Sometimes we're more successful, sometimes we are less successful, but it's absolutely, we are here we are here to help. We are here to provide service to this place.
When are you going to make those Hansard staff permanent? What is your plan to make them permanent? At the moment, if they're on a 12-month contract, it has implications for them in terms of getting a loan, establishing permanency of work. What is your plan to make them permanent? When's that going to happen?
When I get permanent money. I want to be completely honest with you. I'm going to keep putting these bids in. We've enhanced the bid every time. We've found new data, different ways of making the argument. We'll continue to do that.
I'm sorry, Mr. Webb, but it's really hard because it's a management choice of how we spend our budget. So there are choices that you are making. Sorry, it's just a fact that you're given a budget. Within that budget, you have discretion to. So yes, we can say you always want more money. We do, of course you do, and we would, argue that for you as well. But at the end of the day, it's a management choice how you spend your money.
It's a management choice how I spend my money, but the amount of money I have to permanently employ people and the amount of money I have to temporarily employ people stays consistent. So if I was to make some people permanent in one part of the organisation, I would have to make other people temporary in another part of the organisation.
Can you give me a breakdown of the staff in your department by each department area and how many of them are permanent versus temporary?
Yes, I can do that. I don't have it on me, but I can take it on notice.
And if I could just have one last go at the employment issues, and I just want to return to a question that I've asked in previous sessions, Mr. Webb, about the cleaning staff. And you provided last estimates information to me that we have 28 cleaners, 18 full and part-time ongoing, and 10 cleaners from labour hire companies. And I just wondered, what work is done to check that the labour hire engaged cleaners are receiving their correct entitlements? Because you gave me a good answer about how the Parliament pays above award, etc. Yes. But how do you check that the entitlements being paid to the labour hire staff?
Yeah, no, that's an excellent question and something that we take very seriously. I would also probably say to you that similar processes for our catering staff, because we do bring in for events and functions, for instance, we bring in additional catering staff to support an event and the like. So we have arrangements so we don't randomly just go out broadly to a range of firms and take people on randomly.
No, I understand that. And you've given good evidence before. I appreciate that. It's more that regardless of who the labour hire company is, what's our process of checking?
Yes, that's exactly right. So we have relationship management, contract management functions in place. Sorry, I'm rushing through this because I don't know of time.
Yes, thank you.
We do regular check-ins. I think it's 3 times a year, but I'd have to check that to sit down with the organisation to make sure. We also have mechanisms where if staff feel that they are being underpaid, they can raise that with us and we will go and engage with the firm on their behalf.
So you don't have an audit sort of process where you check that they're paying the right, because we all know the issues in the cleaning sector.
Yes, absolutely.
So it's all very well and good to meet with employers, and we should engage, but that doesn't verify that workers are being paid. Also asking staff to come forward, again, power relationship, we don't have to tell you.
Yes.
So I just want to know what proactively we do to check.
Yeah, so they're the things that we're doing. I do take your point. You're right, we don't undertake an audit. We ask for essentially an attestation, but that's not the same thing as doing an audit. So that's something I'm very happy to take away and have a look at. We are very focused on making sure people do get paid what they're owed, and so if there's anything we can do to enhance that regime, I'm very happy to do it. So.
Thank you, Mr. Member.
I might just return to the colour matter briefly. Perhaps you can correct me if my figures are wrong, but I understood from the evidence provided early that costs were awarded to Cullen in the vicinity of $250,000, but the Legislative Council's cost for its legal team is approximately $434,000, if those figures are correct.
I don't know that we actually have that $250,000 figure formally.
Yeah, that $250,000 was an answer the Attorney General gave at the last round of estimates when I think the Honourable Susan Carter asked how much what their legal costs were from a particular fund. So it's possible there are other legal costs, but also it's a fund, from what I understand, that provides, there's a government rate, so they would have lower costs than us, I think.
Right, okay. Well, that might go some way to answering the question, because I was interested in the significant differential between the costs of the two legal teams. Particularly Cullen is, you know, the originator of the matter, and we're ostensibly defending the matter. It seemed a fairly significant difference in costs of legal teams, so that might go some way to explain that.
Potentially, and we'll need to see. I mean, potentially there were costs that came from other areas as well that aren't included in that 250,000. We'll have to just wait and see what happens if costs are awarded against us, and then we can have a look at those figures.
Okay. Now, with respect to the appeal, you know, you as President have rightly brought the appeal to the High Court. Have any other members sought to intervene in the matter and be heard in the matter?
Yes, Mr. Tudor-Hope has.
Okay. Is Mr. Tudor-Hope seeking financial assistance as part of his attempt to
Not that I know of, Mr. Reynolds.
No. No.
Not that we're aware of, Mr. Namba.
No. Well, not from us.
Not from us.
Yeah. Well, Mr. Tudor-Hope's intervention increased the cost to the legislature in responding to whatever he has to say?
With any intervener, we have to respond to the arguments that they make.
So there is a cost to that?
Yeah, as I said, there's about 5 interveners at the moment.
Okay, well.
do you want to...
Well, look, on another note, can I just ask, when's the end of the financial year? When did the last one end, for example?
The last financial year ended on the 30th of June 2026.
Great. So I want to know, when I tried to order paper through my communications allowance for my printer, I was told I couldn't get it because the financial year ended on the 19th of June 2026, and I'd have to wait until the 1st of July. Do we have a different financial year in this place to everybody else?
No, we do not. We do undertake end of financial year processing, and there is a window in which, in order to meet the deadlines for producing the books and the like for the audit office and to go through, we have to start to prepare the books in the last week or so of June.
So everything just stops and we can't order printer paper?
We do try to
so I think Mr. Nanva had the same problem as I had in that week.
I would say, look, I do take the point. I very much do take the point. Our end of year processing should not get in the way of you being able to do your job as a member. So that is something that I'm happy to look at how we make arrangements for that into the future. This has been a long-standing practice for many decades, but there's no long-standing practice is immune from examination. So I'm very happy to have a look at that. It is fair to say that we are here. The whole purpose of DPS is here to assist and help members, and if there's any way that we can change our practices, that we'll do that. We will look into changing those practices. So I'm very happy to look at that area.
Thank you. Just before I hand to Ms. Boyd, I've just got 1 or 2 questions. Recently, the House resolved to seek a legal opinion from Jeffrey Watson SC regarding what's been described as an incident at New South Wales Parliament. What was the cost of that legal opinion?
I don't actually think we have Mr. Watson's.
No, he hasn't submitted it yet.
No. So we don't know. Is the short answer?
We don't know. He hasn't done it pro bono.
He has not done it pro bono.
Okay.
No.
Although we're open to that.
Absolutely. If he's listening, we would love him to waive
benevolence
his
of
cost.
Mr. Watson knows no bounds.
That would be excellent.
So we don't know yet?
No, we don't know.
Okay, all right. And in relation to witnesses who either aren't responding or declining an invitation to the various inquiries and activities of the committees, how is that information being collected just in an ad hoc, anecdotal way, or are committee chairs being asked that information, because it has the potential to build a case going forward? I'm not, of course we don't know what's going to happen in the High Court, but if the Parliament is unsuccessful, yourself is unsuccessful in that case, then that will be a key argument. How is that information being collated?
Yeah.
The committee secretariat is centrally recording all that, so whenever we get a witness who's refusing to come or declining to come, that the director of that committee then gives it to the person in the secretariat who's collating this. So we do have a accurate, centrally held record of declining witnesses.
So that's declining, but also people who just refuse to respond. Yeah. And what about, because in my experience, PC1, we're conducting an inquiry into unsolved homicides. My opinion is that there would be people we have not invited because we know they will decline. So will they be those persons?
That's much harder to record. It's just like before the case was decided, witnesses would turn up and we'd have no real way of knowing whether they were turning up voluntarily because they knew they could be compelled if they didn't, or whether they were always going to turn up voluntarily. So we can't really... All we can go on is when people say, I'm not attending because I can't be compelled to, or they decline, and they decline several times when alternative dates are given.
Thank you. Ms Boyd.
Thank you, Chair. Can I ask, just on a similar point, at least from my own experience, it seems that a number of privilege claims seems to be increasing, and with it the number of independent arbiter reports.
Yeah.
Do you have statistics on what that looks like now compared to in the last parliamentary term, and how much we're spending on the independent arbiter?
I have some statistics, and I think it comes in waves. There weren't a lot of disputes, for instance, in the last financial year, but in the last 2 or 3 months we've had probably more than we had in the previous year. But I'll just find some material on this, and we do have the costs, and we're very lucky with our arbiter, and our arbiters plural, because they really don't charge us what they really should be. Okay, so during the last financial year, there was a dispute on procurement board direction, that cost $3,300. Safe work, investigation of University of Sydney, $2,228. Response to Mr Stephen Kimond to the inquiry into the Children's Guardian, $4,795. Use of ports in Port Kembla and Newcastle, which I think was one of yours, that was $8,415. Abuse in the greyhound racing industry, further order, $1,310. Incident at Parliament House, further order, $3,135. Ex gratia payments. We don't have. We've got 3 current ones, the 3 that have recently been decided where we haven't got bills for those yet.
Maybe just in the interest of time, if I could ask you to maybe take it on notice, but it sounds to me that's very helpful, because it sounds to me like there's a range depending on sort of how complex the issue is. But I'm also interested in how many disputes there's been and how many of them have been successful versus unsuccessful, and in fact whether any of them have been unsuccessful.
I actually do have figures here, combined figures. So in the last financial year there were 12 disputes costing $23,000. The previous year, 24-25, there were 7 disputes costing $24,914. If you want to look at the previous parliament, for instance, in 2021-22 we had 21 disputes costing $48,409.
Do you have the numbers for how many were any of them unsuccessful entirely? That's really
I don't think we have those, because sometimes the arbiter will say, yes, some documents the claim is upheld and others that isn't. But I mean, anecdotally, I'd say we probably 9 out of 10 disputes, the arbiter says that the claim of privilege made by the executive isn't upheld.
It just strikes me that the arbiters' reports are getting more strident, maybe, in saying this is the same issue I have already made a determination on, and yet it's like nobody in TCO is actually looking at what I'm saying, because they're putting the same privilege claims over and over and over, even though they've not been upheld. Perhaps just in the interest of time, maybe take that on notice as to if you've got any more data around how many.
So you're looking for the proportion of those which have been successful to those which haven't?
Yeah, I'm interested in how much it's costing us that we're all being delayed by privilege claims that are, considered to be effectively bogus.
We just want to answer the exact question.
Yes.
What exact information would you like? And
if I could get a breakdown over time of exactly how much arbiters' costs there've been for how many cases in each year for the last 7 years, and how many of each years have been, held up in full, I guess. Have any of them actually not been successful for the member claiming it? Just so I can get an idea of the success rate.
We can provide that.
That would be very useful. It seems like a big waste of everyone's time. Thank you. If I could ask, one of the outstanding things from Broderick that keeps me awake at night is the recommendation in relation to the MOPS Act. Now, I know that the MOPS Act is not within your control, but obviously the fact that our staff in our offices don't have a basic industrial award like every other employee in the state puts them in an incredibly vulnerable position, and that then comes back into a culture where bullying, harassment and other bad behaviour from MPs and other staff can go without any justice at the end of the day. So it's, to me, and I've been lobbying for a long time for us to just abolish the MOPS Act. I think when we discussed this last time, I believe you said it was something that really did just sit with the government of the day and the Premier. But has there been any, I guess, representations made from yourself or the Speaker to the Premier in relation to actually putting an industrial award in place for members of Parliament staff?
The short answer is, first, I just slightly disagree with some of your contentions initially. Okay. I do think that there are a whole range of structures in place that do provide a safe and secure work environment for staff. That having been said, I understand that there are some challenges because of the Act that we currently operate under that potentially would be ameliorated through other structures. But I don't think that perhaps some of the exact terminology I would agree with.
My point was that it's a higher risk environment.
I understand that.
Not that it's entirely unsafe for everybody, obviously.
That's all. In terms of the actual specific question, no, I haven't. I have a view that this is something that is obviously predominantly in the domain of the government to determine whether or not to legislate, but frankly also the domain of the Parliament. We've seen private members' bills be very successful, and so I have a strong view on this issue, that there are arguments both ways, that there are others would strongly support a range of aspects of the MOPS Act and how it's implemented. My view is that I'm a servant of the House and of the Parliament, and that when the Parliament determines how it wishes to act with regard to this, we will implement it accordingly.
The independent complaints officer position was not filled for a while, and we're really glad that it's now been filled, but there was quite a backlog. And I know that people were saying that some of the complaints were really old and had never sort of been dealt with. Is that backlog now been caught up with? What's the kind of, how many disputes are outstanding and what's the turnaround?
Yep. So Mr. Blunt, who is obviously the new ICO, did table a report to the MLC up to the 24th of July. That report is public. I don't intend to go through it, but he made it clear that of the half a dozen or so matters, they were outside the purview of the ICO's jurisdiction, and that there was one complaint which he goes through, which is outstanding, which he goes through in some reasonable depth. It's not my intention to read that out here, but I think it's pretty clear what his intention is in terms of that particular issue, and it is, in fact, I'll quote him, it's his intention to close the matter.
Thank you.
Thank you. The opposition, Mr. Ruff.
Thank you for being here today. I wanted to go back to the issue of the legal advice, the two legal opinions we got on the matter of SO52 versus SO55.
Yeah.
What are the next steps for us, given we've now received that legal advice?
Sorry, you're talking about the incident at Parliament House matter?
Yeah.
Well, it's up to the House to determine.
Right. So what potential options would we have? Because it's obviously a standoff between the government and the executive government and the chamber. So is there any way of testing it or bringing it on for?
Well, I obviously won't provide political advice, but the clerk might provide some procedural
not political advice,
no,
more
not
just
political advice, procedural in terms of
really all the House can really do is continue. Unless a member has a very creative solution, all it can do is continue down the path that it's gone. There's clearly a difference between the executive and the House on this, and the House has suspended the Leader of the Government 4 times. The Leader of the Government is acting on her legal advice. As a member of the executive, that's what she's required to do. The House, which has a different view, is then holding her in contempt for that and suspending the Leader of the Government. She is complying with that order of the House. She is being directed to leave, and when the House resolves that, and then she leaves, escorted by the usher of the black rod. So to that extent, she's complying with the orders of the House. There isn't it's not like an Egan versus Willis scenario where Michael Egan refused to leave and was assaulted by the usher.
But is there any way of, I suppose, testing the competing legal opinions? Is there any way of bringing that on in the courts, for instance?
Not while the Leader of the Government is complying with the orders of the House to the extent that she is at the moment. That would be my view. I mean, there might be alternative legal views, but we have 2 legal advices that the House can look at.
And there's no way of testing it?
Not unless the Leader of the Government resists.
Right. What about different issue, similar, the issue of cabinet in confidence? Is there any way of bringing that on in terms of testing it in the courts? Or what would need to be the prompt for that to happen?
I'll let Mr. Reynolds obviously answer, but I guess I'd just in terms of this whole line of questioning, I just make just a gentle caveat that you're asking Mr. Reynolds for predominantly legal opinions. Legal opinions, as we've seen, will vary. So I just want to give the caveat that he's giving his opinion, but this isn't necessarily 100%.
Yeah, and probably more a procedural opinion rather than a legal opinion, I suppose,
right.
Is probably the line of questioning. Yeah.
Well, I guess it comes back to the same issue, really. What happens in Parliament isn't really a matter for the courts. And so it's really only when some action's taken that can take it into the courts. Like for instance, with the Parliamentary Evidence Act, it's about a statute, and the courts can interpret statutes. In the case of a dispute over whether an SA 52 is a cabinet in confidence, again it would require the leader of the government to refuse to leave or something like that. I have thought about this, but I don't see any other way at the moment that the courts would be brought into this, and to some extent whether, there is a court case on this, Egan versus Chadwick, and there's two very different interpretations given to what that decided in terms of what are cabinet documents.
Yeah, it still remains somewhat unresolved, doesn't it, in terms of cabinet in confidence?
Yeah.
Which is the ongoing issue. So I suppose a prompt of being removed from the chamber by non-publication of documents isn't enough of a prompt for it to end up being a matter for the courts to test, for instance. It would need some other kind of prompt, like the leader of the government on behalf of the government refusing to, or deciding to challenge it, or refusing to comply with the standing orders, for instance.
Yes, but remaining seated, and then, in the Egan case, Michael Egan took the action claiming that he was assaulted by the Usher of the Black Rod when the Usher of the Black Rod put a hand on him and escorted him outside. It would take something like that, an artificial action like that, to create a court case. And in that case, both sides wanted to bring it to resolution in court.
Thank you. Thanks. The different issue, Mr. Webb, you said that Hansard staff had gone from 20 to 35, I think, in the last 10 years. Yeah. Is that mainly the result of the increase in committee activity? Is that right?
Yeah, no, essentially entirely. When I started in 2016, we were actually taking on part-time Hansard people because there just wasn't enough to... that was the era of fairly extreme efficiency dividends as well, but we were essentially moving to more part-time arrangements. But since the 2019 election and the change in the makeup of the upper house, and then the increase in committee activity, which has obviously gone through to this parliamentary term as well, that's where the growth in Hansard. So at first it was moving part-time back to full-time, and then it's been adding more staff since then.
I know in the previous estimates a couple of years ago you were able to provide, you might need to take this on notice, the number of Hansard reportable hours for committees, and it had gone up, I think, from 2011-12 to 2022 by quite a large rate. I think it had basically tripled. Yeah. If you're able to provide the committee with that, if you have it, or on notice, some updated figures, because it is helpful. It is helpful in, I think the PRT has found it helpful in determining the increased workload to members of Parliament, or members of the upper house in particular.
Yeah. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I can probably get them before the end of the hearing. If not,
Yeah.
I'll take it on notice.
Correct. Thank you. And I suppose just in a similar way, what the increasing committee staff, and this might be both you and Mr. Reynolds, in terms of the number of committee staff that's increased in the last 10 or 15 years, given the increased committee activity, if you have any figures.
I can probably answer that straight up.
Yep.
The real uptick in committee activity began in around 2018. At that stage we had 19 committee staff. We currently have 35, and it went up in increments. I think we started off with an extra 5, and then we really needed another extra 5, and so on. But we've gone from 19 committee staff in 2018 to 35 at present.
Thank you. And I suppose, as I said, that's one of the many points that the PRT has pointed to in terms of the increased workload to our officers is the increased committee work. I suppose, has any consideration been given, maybe through you, Mr. President, and then to Mr. Webb, has any consideration been given to where additional staff might be able to be housed in the event of the possibility of increased staff for members of the Legislative Council?
Yeah. Look, thank you for. Actually, a little surprised it's taken an hour and a half for this particular issue to come up. This is a particularly challenging issue. I will throw to Mr. Webb specifically on it, but I do want to make a couple of points. The first is, clearly there's some contestation going on between the houses at the moment about what's going to happen with this legislation. But I want to make it clear that we will implement the legislation if there is a determination by the Parliament that that staffing numbers will increase. We will implement that accordingly. That having been said, we won't be able to configure office spaces immediately before the 1st of May if the legislation is passed. That is to say, if the legislation that has come from the upper house is passed, or alternatively if the determination stands, we won't be able to house those staff members immediately in the way that all current members and staff are, because it will take a significant recalibration. You're quite right to say that there are challenges. We have geographic challenges in this place, in this building, with Macquarie Street on one side, the library, the hospital on the other sides, and Hospital Road. And so there will be significant challenges. But, I'm happy to discuss this further. Obviously, the determination came out of the blue to us in terms of the significant increase in staffing, and there'll be a substantial amount of flow-on effects. But the point I wanted to make to this committee is, if it happens, we may well need to look at a range of other issues in terms of working from home opportunities and increased technology and potential workstation opportunities either in the Parliament or externally. But that will need to be the start of it, because we won't be able to recalibrate the building in such a way to make it like all members and staff currently have those opportunities now on the 1st of May. But Mr. Webb might want to add some more.
Yeah, so there's 3 time horizons that I've been working on. The first, the short-term time horizon, is the 1st of May, and what will we do for the 1st of May? And that will require things like, I think Ms. Boyd in her speech on the matter talked about working from home arrangements or rotations and the like. I don't want to preclude any of that. We will have to work ways of providing space for people within the current footprint, and that's not going to be neat in the first instance. I would say that we are at capacity in this building, and the only options for building additional space would cause so much disruption because of the heritage restrictions, the sightline restrictions, the planning restrictions. We can't, for instance, add another couple of levels to the tower block. We're at the maximum height the tower block can be. So we will have to look then in the medium term about potentially moving some DPS staff off-site, potentially, in order to create enough space to build more members' offices within sufficient space for staff to be there. So, as you know, with the current proposal, there are 2 staff per Legislative Council member and 2.5, so essentially from a desk point of view, 3 head count of people in a crossbench office. Many of you will have seen the kind of slightly rabbit warren-y approach we've taken for the crossbench to have 2 staff. We would have to look at modifying level 11 to allow for that in the medium term, and that means that not everybody will fit on level 11 anymore. So we're going to have to look outside the tower block for space for members elsewhere in the building, and that will involve moving some staff off-site. That's the medium term. That's 2 or 3 years worth of shuffling and work to do, and then in the long term, we have to find a solution to the fact that we're out of space. The population of New South Wales continues to grow. That means one of 2 things, either more members of Parliament or more staff for existing members of Parliament. Either way, space is going to be required and at a premium, and so we're going to have to work out a long-term solution for that. My preference would not be to have people off-site 500 metres away. My preference would be to have everything connected up together, but as the President said, there are real restrictions on where we can go. Library building, hospital building, I don't think anyone's going to be giving me permission to build something on the Domain, for instance, or close down Macquarie Street, so they're pretty hard hard boundaries there. But all of that stuff we'll have to think about long term. So short term, what do we do for the 1st of May? Medium term, what do we do over the next 2 or 3 years so that people can be accommodated properly? Long term, what's the long term space solution for the Parliament? Because these pressures on space are not going to go down by any stretch of the imagination.
Thank you, Mr. Webb. Mr. Nanva?
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to come back to that issue around the attendance of witnesses in committee inquiries. And Mr. Reynolds, you rightly made the point that the non-attendance of some witnesses could be due to factors other than the Cullen decision. You'd agree, wouldn't you, and I suppose Mr. Reynolds and President, that there'd be a range of other actions that we should be mindful of that might undermine the confidence of the public with the integrity of the House and its powers, including those of committees. And I suppose I refer specifically to standards of procedural fairness and the protection of privileged information provided during the inquiry process.
Yeah, I mean, that's, I think, a statement of fact. I have views that there are a range of conventions, I guess, that are not, well, that are being challenged in the Parliament at the moment. And I made some comments about that, I think, in June in the chamber, in terms of the way that the Parliament's operating, and I think things improved a little after that. But I think that all of us do carry a responsibility to fulfil those obligations.
So it wouldn't be unreasonable for members of the public to perhaps look at some of those issues around procedural fairness and the way information is used once evidence is given, and perhaps be discouraged from participating fully in some of the processes that are available to them through the committee process. That's not an unreasonable...
I don't think that's an unreasonable assumption, but obviously we don't have that information. The only information that I would say that I have, and Mr. Reynolds might correct me, is that the one specific name I referred to, Mr. O'Brien, I think that's the only occasion that somebody has specifically cited the legal case in terms of declining to appear, I think. That I'm aware of at any rate. Mr. Reynolds may know, but there may well be other reasons, but I'm not a party to that.
I think there have been a couple of other...
All right, thank you.
Now, there are a number of, I suppose, privileges, matters that are being dealt with respect to the leaking of information through committee processes and the disclosure of privileged information. Could you perhaps take on notice how the rate of allegations with respect to the leaking of information and the disclosure of privileged information compares in this term of Parliament compared to other terms of Parliament? Because I mean, I can only speak from the perspective of being on the Privileges Committee. There are now a range of matters that are before us. And I'm just interested, with respect to a baseline, as how that compares to other parliaments.
Yeah, I'll take it on notice. I think it'll be difficult to give you a proper answer to that. Or what I can say is that the Privileges Committee in this Parliament has been the busiest that I've ever seen it in all the years that I've been here. And quite a number of those inquiries have been, or several of those have been related to unauthorised disclosures. And I would say to everyone on the committee, the guidelines that the Privileges Committee came up with in its recent inquiry into an unauthorised disclosure, which are now before the House, are an excellent guideline to how the House and the Privileges Committee should deal with future unauthorised disclosures, because you're quite right, they have a real chilling effect on participation in committee inquiries.
Yeah. Okay. I'd like to just come back to the issue of the position descriptions, if I could, Mr. Webb. I just wouldn't mind a little bit more detail about the consultation that took place in coming up with that, I suppose, the pot of tasks and skills and capabilities.
Yeah.
Mr. Webb.
So, as you know, the consultation did go on for quite some time, and there were a few different waves of it.
Are we incorporating the Edwards and the
Yep, everything
processes?
that came out of every piece of work that happened over the last few years was incorporated in putting the list together. The team sent me through a little bit more information after Ms. Boyd's questions, and just I think there's a couple of areas where where multiple people raised an issue, and we've used phrasing from one of those, but perhaps we need to expand that phrasing a little bit further. So it might not be, no, it's not on that bit. So things like speech writing, for instance, it's referred to, but more with a more social media lens than a speech lens, and so there are areas where we think we could split them up, for instance, and make it clearer that there are the two areas. But we've not made up anything, we've taken it all from the consultation that's come through.
Could I ask a follow-up, Mr. Webb? The consultation, and I take what you just said about sort of the global consultation over those few years, was there specific consultation or questions asked about the position description though?
So early in the consultation, people made the general point that the position descriptions were out of date, that they didn't reflect the contemporary nature of the work that people did. So probably if I look at the first wave of consultation, it wasn't, we didn't get so much feedback on specific tasks and things that people did. It was more the point that the existing position descriptions were not reflective of what people did on a day-to-day basis. The more recent consultations specifically asked the questions about, well, what are those contemporary tasks and activities that people do, and we got a lot of great feedback from people on that, which we've reflected in these position descriptions. But as I say, very, very happy to continue making modifications.
Could I ask which round of consultation that was? It's just the information I've got is that it was a consultation in October that didn't have direct questions about tasks, and I just wondered, and I'm worried that we've missed it, because I know in my office we've got firm views.
Yeah,
so I want to make sure that they're heard. So
really?
no, well, you know.
in terms of when specifically we asked the question, I'd have to take that on notice. I'm afraid I don't have like the specific wave of consultation that specific questions were asked in front of me. But happy to get something and come back on it. As I say, we are, and can I just really reiterate, we're open to feedback all the time. Our intention with those position descriptions is that they are reflections of what people actually do, and to the extent to which this version hasn't met that criteria, we will keep adding to it until it is good and fit for purpose.
Thank you for that. And could I ask?
And I suspect, sorry, Dr. Ken, I suspect that that'll be an ongoing process forever. Because that's why we're having this discussion in the first place, that the roles now aren't the same as the roles from 10 years ago.
No, I appreciate that. Do you think you would be able to, Mr. Webb, provide a list of the consultation activities just so that we can see? And also
absolutely.
because I'm a bit worried that if some... particularly my staff member has missed out, there might be a reason that we don't know that we've missed out. So if we could have that list, that would be great.
One of the things that we are conscious of, and we've had these discussions with some individuals who have come to us, is that because the consultations were extensive and over a very, very long period of time, there are people that have started in offices subsequently too, and so we're very, very open to that. And to the President's point, I think it's really important. The mistake I don't want to make is sort of trying to set a role description in amber for the next 10 or 15 years. I think if we had been dynamically updating these role descriptions all the way through, we wouldn't have got to this kind of point. So every year we'll be asking.
I've got to say, I do appreciate that the presiding officer have started to undertake this pretty onerous task, and you've decoupled it from the salary conversion part of the equation, which I'll come to in a moment. But I do appreciate that is happening as we speak, but it seems an unfinished project. To the extent that the Bent and Edwards inquiries were relevant to the position descriptions that you formulated, are there aspects of those two reports that you can release if they help inform how you've settled the...
I can certainly put together a summary of what came out of, specifically to do with role descriptions, the feedback that we got in all the waves of consultation we did, if you like, just to be really clear about when certain bits of feedback came in over what kind of time period.
That'll help.
Could I also ask, I think the determination email said to reach out for info or assistance, but didn't explicitly say anything about more feedback. So are you willing to let staff know generally that you're still open? So maybe you could do an email out or something.
Absolutely.
And they may not all be watching now.
No.
Shocking.
You shocked me, but as I pick my jaw off the floor, I will absolutely make sure that goes around, because we're very, very open to that.
Now, in the determination, you've said it's not expected that all these accountabilities would form part of anyone's role.
Any specific person's role, yes.
Which is understandable, because different members ask different staff to do different things in their office. So there's no one uniform research assistant, for example. And
also, quite frankly, if there was a person that was literally doing everything on that list, they would be working, I don't know, like 90 to 120 hours a week. It would be impossible for one person to do everything.
So this comes back to, they've obviously been crafted in a way where the flexibility is given to members to choose what subset of task, skills, capabilities are relevant to the work that they do.
Yes,
which is a good thing, because no two officers are the same.
And can I say on that front, one of the pieces of advice we do give members who come to us to ask about some of that is to be explicit about that. I think sometimes people just say, because there's this meta list now, as long as you're doing stuff on that list. But for clarity for staff, it would be really fantastic for each member to sit down with each of their staff and say, out of this list, this is what my expectations of you are. Because I think that's sometimes where some of the friction can come up if there is a mismatch on what someone's expecting their job is versus what the member's expecting their job is.
I suppose where the rubber hits the road now is what would normally happen is, I suppose in the ordinary course of events, you'd align a fairly uniform set of position descriptions and engage in the salary conversion process across the public sector.
Yes.
Now, noting the vagaries of the sort of MOPS arrangements and these PDs, which are so vast, have you given thought to how those salary conversions might take place in a methodical, structured way that accurately reflects the pot of tasks that staff do and remunerates them fairly in accordance with what the equivalent public sector...
So when people are looking at the role descriptions, and I know we touched on this before, but just to reiterate, it's probably also not just on the list of tasks, but on the capability levels against the capability framework, because that will there is an averaging effect, as I said before there, but that's where we think that we'll be able to do that comparison with the public sector a little bit more accurately. So the capabilities, by deliberate design, and I worked in the Public Service Commission when the original capability framework was come to, that the capability framework is designed to move away from individual tasks and talk more generally about capability. And the idea is that, the old days of the public service when people said a mandatory selection criteria is you must have experience with this homegrown product that we built under our desk 10 years ago that nobody outside our department's ever heard of, but it's now a mandatory criteria, so therefore no one externally will ever be considered. Those days are well behind us. But the capability framework is what gave us that in the broader public sector. So that's the point of comparison. And we've taken very seriously the desire that that conversion process should include a public sector equivalency component to it. And so I would say, as well as the task list, it's probably even more important to pay attention to the capability levels against the capability framework. Because
is that conversion process one that's underway?
It will be. It is as a part of our budget, pulling together a budget.
So you're looking at a funding model.
Yep. Funding models. Yep. All of that kind of stuff. So the reason I hesitated slightly is that a big part of that funding bit is also the PRT determination and exactly what the outcomes of that are. So, for instance, it says an extra staffer for everyone, but what level of staff? Does everyone get a research officer, or is it two secretary research assistants? Research assistants. There's been a name change. I am struggling to convert that in my head all the time.
We did that here.
Yes, that's right. Is it so? For instance, as a major party member, do you get a second research assistant, or do you get a research officer? What grade should those? All of that needs to be worked through as a part of the PRT determination. Once that's in place, we'll have a better sense to be able to cost out all of the cost implications for both the conversion, the re-evaluation of the jobs that you were talking about, plus the addition of these extra roles coming in as well, if that's where the Parliament lands down the track.
Thank you, Mr. Webb, and thank you to the government for those questions. The time has run over a little bit. We're going to have a break now.
Mr. Chair, just before we do, can I just correct one minor thing?
Yes, certainly.
In regard to the Cullen matter, Mr. Cullen did seek costs in response to our application for special leave, like the first threshold stage, but his submission doesn't to the High Court now doesn't specifically mention costs, so it's silent on whether he's seeking costs or not for the final outcome of the appeal. And just confirming, the Attorney General submission also doesn't mention costs.
Thank you, Mr. Rath.
And just one extra piece of information for Mr. Rath. So I've just got the last 4 years of transcribed hours, but just to give you a sense, we'll get the full, a longer one on notice. The year ending 30 June 2022 was 1,548 hours. The year ending 30 June 2023 was a little lower, but keep in mind that's the election year, so there's a big gap where there's no committee activity. So that was 1,131. So 1,500, 1,100, but then in 2024 that's jumped up to 2,062, and for the year just ended it was 2,098. So we're talking about, and that 1,500 in 2022 was a significant increase of, say, what it was at the equivalent time in the previous parliamentary term. So we're talking about, even compared to the 2019 to 2023 Parliament, we're talking about a 33% increase in transcribed hours just from last Parliament to this Parliament.
Wow. Thank you, Mr. Webb.
Thank you, Mr. Webb.
Thank you, everyone. We will reconvene at 11:15 for...
Can we ask if we could reconvene at 11:20? I
don't think...
Is that possible?
Can we resolve?
It's in the resolution from the House.
We may all be 5 minutes late.
So you may well...
I think we might all be a little late.
Wander in, but there's nothing we can do. online. All good. All right, we'll recommence the hearing and questions from the crossbench, which there are none. So we'll now turn to questions from the opposition.
Thank you.
Mr. Fang.
Mr. President, in terms of the PRT, where is that funded from?
Sorry. Very good question. Mr. Webb, where do we get the funding that funds the PRT determination?
So you would recognise under normal circumstances the PRT determination comes out at the start of June. We then factor that into our budget bid process. So we essentially usually put like a $0 line item into our budget bid saying the cost of the PRT determination. And then when the determination comes down in June, we do some quick analysis and then fill in a dollar figure there. This time we couldn't do that for two reasons. Firstly, of course, the determination was not handed down at the start of June, it was handed down at the end of July, so that budget window had already closed. And of course, the other feature of this determination is that the financial impact of it is significantly higher than other determinations. Usually we're just looking at what pay rise for members, increase in entitlements, we've basically cost all that up. This time we're having to look at not just that, but also the increase in staffing and the flow-on effect from the increase of staffing as well. So there is no other source of funding bar the parliamentary appropriation that comes through the appropriation bill. So to the extent to which we fund the PRT determination, it requires us to alter the amount that has been appropriated to the Parliament. Okay.
Thank you for that comprehensive answer. Wasn't actually the question that I'd asked, but I understand how you would confuse it. In terms of the actual process...
Well, the short answer is we have to fund it out of the block of money that we get.
Yeah. No, what I mean is that the actual process of making the determination of the PRT, having the PRT staff, the meetings, all of the process that goes into creating a PRT, where is that funded from?
Sorry, I didn't understand the question.
No, and I can understand how you would have misunderstood the question when I put it.
So the actual tribunal themselves plus the secretariat around the tribunal is funded by the executive, not by us, because it's an outcome of the statute, of the law around that. In terms of people's contribution to the process, of course, that is essentially funded by whoever's making the contribution. So I have my members' entitlement staff who are involved, finance team more broadly, and others. That all is just covered by our normal appropriation. And of course, members who make a contribution also put their own time and their own staff's time into it as well, and that's funded out of a member's office. But the actual core tribunal plus secretariat is funded by the executive.
Okay, so in terms that it is funded by the executive, does it sit under the Premier's department or does it sit with the Cabinet Office, or where would it sit in terms of the structure of the executive government or the public service?
So it's...
I don't know the answers to these questions, so I'm going to hand them to...
Neither do I, which is why I'm asking you.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah. So the positions, I think from memory, is funded under the boards and committees side of the executive. So there's a series of positions like the statutory and other officer remuneration tribunal, for instance, is the same area. It is in the Premier's portfolio. I couldn't tell you whether it's managed off the top of my head out of the Cabinet Office or the Premier's department. I'd have to check on that, but it's essentially managed out of the Premier's portfolio is my understanding. But I will get my crack squad to check on that, and I'll correct the record if I'm wrong. Okay, so in that circumstance then, is it fair to surmise that in a previous term of Parliament it would have been in DP&C as it was then known before the machinery of government change? Yeah. I believe that's correct, and as I said, I'll get the crack squad to correct me. I mean, the only other place it could possibly be would be in the Treasury portfolio, but I'm pretty sure it's in the Premier's portfolio. All right, so we have effectively then a body that sits in the Premier's department, or sits in the certainly portfolio. Yeah, in the it's under the executive government. How many times have we overridden the
PRT determination in this term of Parliament?
In this term, well, we certainly did the last year. I don't know other than that if Mr. Reynolds, you have any, or Mr.
In the 10 years I've been with the Parliament, the only 2 times where it's been looked at was last year in terms of the quantum of the salary increase for members and the process that's currently in front of the chambers at the moment. They're the only 2 that I'm aware of.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Is there anything more? Yeah.
So I seem to recall that the PRT determination was set aside in 2023 as well, when pay was frozen for members of Parliament for 2 years. So, as I understand, the Parliamentary Remuneration Tribunal's work has been set aside every year of this term of Parliament. Would that be a fair summation?
I know the tribunal gave effect to the 0%. I can't. I'm just getting people to check whether that was an overriding of the determination or something that the tribunal.
It could have been an instruction to the.
They may have taken into account in informing their determination for the 2 years of the pay freeze.
It may have been a submission of the government.
Yeah, but I think the difference with the last 2 years is there's been an act, like a bill, that has explicitly, after the determination has come out, has explicitly overridden proportions of it. I'll double check, but my recollection was that in the previous 2 years, the tribunal essentially gave effect to the 0% wage rise decision of the government in coming to the determination. But I'll just double check that in case I've misrecalled.
So, appreciating that there's, I guess, some different views as to what's occurred, could I perhaps frame it in a way that says that the Parliamentary Remuneration Tribunal hasn't had the freedom to implement the imprimatur that it has previously in this term of Parliament?
Well, the Parliament last year and this year, both houses have said they want significant changes. Obviously, those changes are quite different. It's the Parliament itself that determines that, and this body was created under the Parliament, and so it's obviously the Parliament is the master of its own domain.
But it's fair to say that the Parliamentary Remuneration Tribunal was effectively designed to remove the Parliament making its own determination, and yet that's exactly what we've been doing for the whole term of this Parliament.
Yeah, I mean that's a statement of fact, is that the Parliament has overridden the PRT both last year and seems to have an intent to do so again this year. That is clearly a statement of fact. So
you've got a Premier at the moment who has, unless we're corrected, but I'll go with the assumption that the PRT sits in the Premier's department, which I expect it does.
It doesn't.
The Premier,
Special Minister of State.
Special Minister of State. Oh, John Graham, Honest John.
But within the Premier's department.
But within the Premier's department?
Smoz is within Premier.
I think it's within the Premier's portfolio, but it might be administered by the Special Minister of State.
Well, we can either blame Chris Minns or...
got people triple checking all of that now.
We'll provide that information.
In any case, we have a Premier that has most likely, under his portfolio, the PRT, and yet he doesn't trust them to do the work that he explicitly has them doing. Is that a waste of money for the Parliament to...
A point of order. Mr Namber on a point of order.
Don't cover up for Lindsay, mate.
Order.
I'm just going to suggest again that it's not relevant to the terms of reference of this inquiry, and he's also seeking to ask an opinion of the witnesses today, and I'd also say asking an opinion is not courteous under the procedural fairness resolution either.
To the point of order, I think the Honourable Bob Namber made my point previously in his former attempt to cover up for the government when he took a point of order about the fact that this is about the expenditure, and I'm certainly asking as to the expenditure and whether it's a waste of money given that the Premier completely ignores the PRT that sits under his own department.
Well,
Further to the point of order.
To the point of order, Mr. Namber.
I mean, it might assist if we just refresh our minds as to what the terms of reference of this inquiry are, that the budget estimates and related papers for the financial year 26-27 presenting amounts to be appropriated from Consolidated Fund be referred to portfolio committees for inquiry and report. I'd suggest that that is not relevant to the legislature funds, so they're not relevant to this inquiry.
I mean, I could take a point of order, or I can address the point of order unless you happen to...
Well, look, I take a wide view of what is relevant to this inquiry, and I don't uphold the point of order in terms of relevance, but I do in terms of seeking an opinion from the President. I don't think that is in order in terms of the procedural fairness resolution, but I do think that a line of inquiry into the determinations of the PRT and its impact on our work is important and relevant, but I don't think you should be asking the President for his opinion on what he may or may not think is in the mind of the Premier.
I guess the only point that I'd make in response, with your indulgence, Mr. Chair, is I wouldn't characterise it in that way. It was a decision of the Parliament, not a unilateral decision by the Premier, and I certainly wouldn't provide an opinion on whether it's a waste of money or not. That's for others to determine.
But given that the Parliament continues to override the PRT, and certainly that's been of the most recent future what's occurring, how much does the PRT cost, if there is a cost to the Parliament, and whether there is I guess, a need to expend that money on a department that effectively gets, overridden at every opportunity by this Premier.
Yeah, the PRT doesn't fall under the remit of the legislature, unfortunately, so I'm unable to answer that.
No, I appreciated that. I just thought I'd throw that in there for...
And just for clarity, the Secretariat for the PRT does sit within the Premier's department.
Yep.
But the responsible minister, as Mr. Naver indicated, on a day-to-day basis is the Special Minister for
So they've got
State.
shared responsibility for this failure. Understood. I'm going to move now to the website, and everyone else has had a crack, so why not join in? So just confirming, the expenditure for this website from last financial year and this financial year is $5.8 million.
Correct.
Okay.
Mr. Fang, if you're comfortable with this, I'll just let Mr. Webb answer all the website questions, unless there's a specific one you want to direct to me.
Oh, no, I think that's wise, Mr. President.
Thank you.
Yes. Now, I want to check who developed the website.
That's not a complex question to answer, but there's a couple of moving parts. So we have within my department the digital transformation team who project managed the work. We have staff from the Department of Legislative Council and the Department of Legislative Assembly who provided the subject matter expertise into the project. And we had the vendor that we used, which is a vendor called Squiz, who are the ones that provided the underlying website platform and the configuration work that we're going through. A lot of the complexity and the reason why the cost, this is not a website you could just go to Canva and press a few buttons and have a website generated. A lot of the cost is associated with the connection between the website and our underlying parliamentary data, making sure that's reflected accurately and the like. There's significant amount of work that's gone into that side of things, and that's where a lot of the development costs has come in.
Okay, so where you've outlined the digital transformation team and the staff from the Legislative Council and the Legislative Assembly that have all been involved in the transformation of the website, is the $5.8 million including the staff that are employed in the Parliament as well as Squiz. How much was the contract for Squiz?
Squiz, the actual underlying licence is about $200,000, $231,100 per year for the licence. The delivery, the development work that we had them do for us for this first phase was $405,000.
And that includes both last financial year and this financial year?
Yeah, that's over the 405,000 was for last financial year.
Yep.
We're not, I don't have any cost for this financial year. It will depend a little bit on what we ask them to do.
So when you said in an answer to a previous question from Ms. Boyd, I think the $5.8 million included the expected expenditure for the. So how are we able to measure the expected expenditure, given that we don't know what their costs from Squiz will be?
Yeah, so we made an estimate as to what we think the total cost of delivering the website has. I don't have the breakdown into components for this financial year.
So the cost could actually go past $5.8 million and go past $6 million.
I would say to you that I think that's very unlikely. The $5.8 million includes some contingency funding, and so we will be working to that budget, and it's not my intention to go beyond that budget. There are a range of other organisations that we've engaged with, some technical staff from a vendor called Imposo, which is about $695,000 over 2 years for them, and some work around change management as well. Some of that's done internally, and we do have some additional support around both the initial and ongoing change over the next 2 years.
Can I just check, did any of these companies have any involvement in the Bureau of Meteorology website?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay.
But,
I literally just thought I better check because.
To be honest, I've not asked that question. I believe that project was in the order of $100 million. So
well, we might get there yet. We may get there yet.
I'm happy for that to be a point of comparison, if you would like. I have delivered this website for 95% less cost than the Bureau of Meteorology website. Very happy to put that on the record.
I'm not sure that that's something we should be promoting, but anyway. In terms of the expenditure of that $5.8 million, you've indicated that the process has been occurring for a while. Now, what was the reason that we had to accelerate it before the end of June or July?
Mid-July.
Mid-July,
was the deadline. So as I said in answer to a previous question, the platform that we used for the old website, we became aware that it was going to hit end of life in mid-July, and so we needed to move off that platform before it.
So when you say that platform was going to reach end of life, do you mean that they were ceasing operations in Australia, or were they? Did we not renew the license, or what was the cause? Was the company going out of operation? It seems unusual.
Yes, so the company is not going out of operation or anything like that, but what would have happened is that security updates would have stopped happening for the website from that point onwards. So that was the primary factor. As this committee would appreciate, I don't want to go into details around the security matters. I never do in public forums, but of course, a lack of security updates from that point onwards is a serious matter.
And how was it the case that we weren't advised of this prior to?
As I said, I have to take ultimate accountability for that. Because of that history that I went through before, and because of the lack of visibility we had over all the systems that have accreted over a long period of time, it was only when we started doing the work and the excellent work that both the IT and digital transformation teams have done in the last 2 years to map out all of the various historical systems that underpin this parliament. It was only going through that process that we discovered this particular vulnerability. This shouldn't happen again, in that we do now have all those systems mapped out. And one of the reasons we undertook that work was a fear that there might be something that we weren't seeing under the surface. I'm very proud of the work that the team's done. It's excellent work, but it came and it probably highlighted this issue in a way that we might have been taken even more by surprise down the track, but it left us with a shorter period of time to implement.
I've got a list of functionality issues that's been provided to me, and I'll put those on notice because they are lengthy, and I want to put them on notice so that they're actually in writing to you so that you might be able to address them. But the last question that I've got...
Sorry, Mr. Fang, just before you go on, could you also, like, I understand you're putting them on notice, could you also email them to Mr. Webb literally today so that we can start on them, start having a look at them already?
Certainly, I can certainly arrange for that to occur.
Yeah, that'd be great.
The last question that I wanted to ask was, in terms of the Bureau of Meteorology website, and part of the reason I asked the question was partly in jest, but also they had the ability to keep the functionality of the old website by using a modified address, and people that were practiced in using that website could then still practice that functionality through the methods that they were already used to. Is it the case that the data that we have for the website is available to us, and that we could employ a similar method where people could still access the old website with the format that they are used to and with the links that previously worked, and whilst you try and fix the functionality of the current poor website that I can't find virtually anything on? So is that something that is feasible, reasonable, that we could do in the short term to provide those people that are used to using the previous format some ability to find the things that they need to?
Because the old website sits on a platform that is now out of support, I can't make the old website public in any way, shape or form. It would pose too big of a risk going forward. Having said that, what we are trying to do is understand those issues and work as quickly as possible to overcome them. For example, just last Thursday we released a Hansard Advanced Search function, which is dealing with a lot of the issues that people had put forward. Not all of them. There are a couple of issues around date ranges that are tricky.
Just bring the calendar back. The calendar that sat on the thing, and you could click the date that you wanted, and you clicked the house you wanted, and it just popped up.
And
it was beautiful. And then now I can't find a damn thing.
It's there on every page. At the very top, you'll see the word calendar, and it just drops down the calendar, and you can click through to things from there.
Great news, Mr. Webb. Mr. Mansell or Mr. Murphy?
Chair, I just wanted to, I've got a couple of questions before I pass to my colleagues. I just wanted to start with a follow-up to one of Mr. Fang's questions from earlier. I think, Mr. Webb, the way you described it, if I can paraphrase it like this, you said you get a block of money from Treasury for your budget, and then you have to meet whatever the PRT says is in the determination out of that block of money. Is that right?
And usually, because the PRT determination is handed down at the start of June, usually we have factored in the cost of the PRT determination into what that block of money is, but this year we weren't able to do that because we had the PRT determination hadn't been handed down.
So can I ask then, the PRT determination, for example, had a 3.7% increase to many of the allowances, the Sydney allowance, the general travel allowance, the skills development allowance, the communications allowance. If the legislation that's before Parliament now passes, which says that that determination is of no effect, what happens to that money that was allocated for the increase in those allowances?
We didn't get it because we didn't know what the increase would be. So
you're saying you got a zero increase for allowances this year?
Because there was no normally we would under normal circumstances. You're absolutely right. If the determination had been released in the first week of June as it's meant to, we would have put a last minute budget bid in. We put a line item into our budget bids that says PRT determination impact, and then we fill that number in at the last minute. But because this year we didn't have a PRT determination, that dollar amount.
And in circumstances where the Parliament legislates to override the PRT determination, as it did last year, in terms of members' pay, what happens to that money? Do you repay that back to Treasury?
We haven't. It's only happened that once, and we did not last year. I would say that the amount of money we have for members does not. if every one of you spent every cent of every one of your allowances, we're not appropriated at that kind of level. We're appropriated at based around historical spend patterns, and so to a large extent, if it was a relatively minor amount of money, I don't think they would make an adjustment. If we were talking about literally tens of millions of dollars, I suspect there would be a process. It's never happened.
So you said you didn't repay it to Treasury when that happened last year. So what happens to it then? Is that just money that you can use your discretion to spend?
It essentially, members ended up spending more money last year than they traditionally have, in part because we made changes to the short-term relief arrangements, and that means members are more fully utilising short-term relief. And so that money essentially went into members' spend, but in areas where members were spending more money than we had anticipated at the start of the year. I would say, in terms of my ability to forecast the budget, members' spend is the variable that is very hard, because you have the absolute right to spend every cent that you're given going through, and on a year-to-year basis it can vary quite dramatically. Election years being a good example therein.
All right. Just turning to another issue now, the Sydney Register. What's happening with that? I received an email on the 24th of February this year saying that if members are comfortable with an alternative approach, they begin phasing it out by the 30th of June. I wrote an email questioning some of the issues that would arise in relation to that being phased out. Are they being phased out or not phased out?
We're gathering that kind of feedback now. Yours has been very important feedback, as anybody's is. Our goal always is to make things as administratively easy as possible for members. Quite a few members had come to us and said, so for instance, I swiped to get into Parliament House, why do you then require me to also justify that I was in Sydney? You literally have a record that says that I was in Sydney. So we've tried to, but if there is a demand for the register continuing, we will continue doing it.
Can I make one quick comment on that? Just as an aside, I used the register for years, and when there was some discussion about it being phased out, I was like, this is an outrage. And they said, no, all you need to do is just tap on at any point during the day, tap on with your security pass, and then it automatically gets registered upstairs. So that's all I do now. Now, of course, every member's different. There may well be other reasons why you need that, but from my perspective, it actually works brilliantly.
Yeah, but if members say we need you to both do the tap and have the register, then we'll keep the register going.
I was just going to say, the important thing about the register is it gives you a receipt. When you're signing, you take something with you.
Yes.
And it's a requirement to have that evidence if you're audited.
Yes.
Which is very difficult to get from security. Sometimes it can take days for them to respond when you ask them for evidence of you swiping in.
Yeah.
If we're going to shift to tapping on or off, has thought been given to a process where you can automatically provide members on a daily or a weekly basis with those tap-on records as an alternative to the register? Because
that's exactly right. A fantastic suggestion. This is one of the things that we have been looking at, is a regular report to members that basically says not every tap that you've done. We essentially take the first tap in a day. So it'll basically a report that comes to you, and we're very interested in what kind of timing you'd want for it, with a monthly report or a weekly report, as you say. That would basically say for each day...
I'm thinking of a daily report so that I can attach it to a claim for Sydney Allowance.
Sure thing. We can definitely do that. So the idea would be to set up a report so that you basically have that information to hand. That feedback that it's necessary as an evidentiary part of the audit process has come through to us. I think it makes a lot of sense. The goal with all of this is to make your life easier, and so to the extent to which we need to make any adjustments, like I said, keeping the register for people that want it, having a receipting process that's a little bit more automatic so you don't have to ask the question every time. We're absolutely happy to do all of those things. The goal is to make your life easier, not harder.
I think it's a very sensible suggestion, Mr. Murphy.
Thank you.
Dr. Kane.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. President.
Dr. Kane.
I wanted to ask you a question that I've asked recent estimates, but anyway. I wondered if you could provide an update on what made in New South Wales products are available in the parliamentary gift shop. And if
Well,
there's been any recent changes.
Can I say more now than we used to have? I'm delighted to do that, and just let me get this very excellent information for you.
The gin and the rum, I'm reliably informed, is Australian made.
All the wine.
Yes, all alcoholic products, Chair, are New South Wales sourced.
A particular look, you are particularly interested in this, and it's been excellent talking to you about this. And I do think, as a parliament, we have responsibility for both the goods that we sell at our gift shop, but also for the food and beverage that we utilise to, wherever we possibly can, source New South Wales products. I think that as the New South Wales Parliament, it's totally appropriate that we showcase New South Wales goods and products. And I'm particularly excited that a couple of months ago we started stocking in our gift shop goods from the Social Outfit, which is a social enterprise and registered charity that supports refugees and migrant women through employment and training opportunities. It's based in Sydney, and you know it well, Dr. Kane, because you were the one who introduced me to it in the first place. I think that being able to support those sorts of initiatives are a really exciting and important opportunity, in the same way that we support Aboriginal artists in our gift shop as well. I think that we can send an important message through the items that we stock about what the values are of this place. And that's one of the reasons why I was most delighted to ensure that happened within the Parliament, and I encourage everybody to go and look at those items. They are excellent gift items, and they can support an extremely good charity at the same time.
Thank you, and thank you, Mr. President, for your willingness to engage on those issues and other issues. And I just wanted, while I was here then, to get an update. I think last time, or maybe I wasn't here last time, the time before, we were talking about a return and earn scheme for Parliament.
Yes,
Mr.
that's right.
Webb,
So we're engaging in the return and earn program. We couldn't fit one of those big box things in the parliamentary precinct. So what we're doing is we are separating out the waste streams, either through the bins people use, but also once the cleaners collect everything up, we also do a little bit of separation at the back end as well. And all of the cans or anything that qualifies return and earn goes to return and earn. Okay. We have somebody that comes and picks it all up and takes it to the and the President and the Speaker have both chosen the charity from the area, so the funds go through to charity. I personally wanted it to come back to us, but the President insisted that it go to charity.
Fun website upgrades.
Yeah, that's right, exactly. I could use every dollar I could find, but the President did insist on it going to charitable, and we did.
Yeah. My charity, for example, was Legacy, New South Wales, and we recently met with their acting CEO and presented them, I think, with a cheque for $4,500 or something,
nice.
For which they were very, very grateful.
And I have one last on that kind of area. I think we might have also asked about other recycling and difficult to recycle items, and I just wondered, is there any updates on sort of a broader recycling scheme or developments for Parliament?
There is, and we're looking at this very deeply. We, in fact, met with the head of the EPA to discuss, Mr. Webb and I, to discuss this issue and how to increase the recycling within the building. And this is something that I intend to push hard over the next few months. I think that, again, this building needs to be an exemplar of what's achievable and what's appropriate within public institutions and, in fact, any institution, corporate institutions as well. And so the answer I would give at this point is watch this space, because I think that there are some exciting initiatives. Obviously, we need to ensure people have the choice to do what they want to do, but we want to give people opportunities that are exciting and innovative, and support sustainability, increasing sustainability in this building as much as we possibly can. And more than that, this was an extremely good engagement, because not only are we looking at the potential increase to recycling and a circular economy in this building, but we're also, because of this engagement and relationship, there's now an assessment of a number of the other sustainability issues in terms of solar panels and other bits and pieces within the Parliament, which is not going to come at any cost to us, is my understanding, but will give us some excellent information. You might like to say a few more words about that, Mr.
To your original question, we also have things like battery collections spots and things like that around the building as well. So we've tried to fit into existing recycling mechanisms for the
and
more
again, you've
difficult
kindly got
things.
our clothes recycling still in the library. So thank you for that.
which is really, really fantastic. But no, this engagement I think is going to be really interesting. You might recall, I think a couple of estimates ago, we talked about the fact that we'd done a net zero business case to specifically do a whole bunch of stuff around both recycling, circular economy, power generation, etc. The government made the determination to not fund specific, not just for us, but generally not fund specific net zero cases, but the instruction was to build it into your forward program of work. So make sure that you're doing that. So that's what we've been working on recently. This engagement will give us some wonderful feedback. So for instance, we have solar panels, as you might know, but I think it only covers about 6% of our energy needs. The solar panels are, well before my time, I would say probably 20 plus years old. Obviously solar technology has come a long way since then. What would be the net impact of replacing the solar panels with more up-to-date ones? Things like that are the kinds of things we'll be able to engage on in this process to make sure that we've got all the really good information to inform how we build it into our forward program of work. And I did want to give a shout out to the team who's been working on the 2040 precinct plan. So we've been trying to anticipate changes in the precinct. We've talked about some of them in terms of space and accommodation, but also it's things like power generation and the like. As you might know, we provide, for instance, hot and chilled water, not just for ourselves, but for the library and for the hospital as well, because that's how things were designed back in the 70s when they built the tower block. If we can get some of these things into a better shape, it will not just impact our profile, but also the profile of other institutions in this strip as well. So it's something we're very enthusiastic about doing.
But we're also always looking at increasing sustainability in this place, and always open to other suggestions. Can I just make, Mr. Chair, just one quick clarification? I did make a remark earlier that we had donated $4,500 to Legacy due to the return earn scheme. My intrepid Chief of Staff advises me that it was only $3,000, but we shall.
It's still good.
It's still good, and we shall seek to increase that next year.
Can I just ask, in light of all that good sustainability work that you're doing, is there a documented sustainability plan for the Parliament? Or?
Yeah, so there is. We're actually doing a fair bit of work on it at the moment. So we've had a sustainability kind of plan for a long time, predates me even. We put a lot of effort into building this business case, was where we were putting our effort up to about a year ago. So what we've been doing now is taking all the material we put together for the business case and transferring it over into a sustainability plan that assumes the existing spending. So at some point we have diesel generators down in the basement that in case we lose electricity. At some point they'll come to end of life. The kind of thing that we're being told to do is to say when they get to end of life, replace them with a more environmentally friendly option. It might be, next time around, it might be batteries, for instance.
Do you have targets for single-use plastics?
Yeah, we've been phasing out single-use plastics pretty much across the board for a few years now. We're down to the point where there's very limited single-use plastics in the catering ecosystem, which is where a lot of them were before. I say that there are a couple of remnant areas that are proving a little difficult in terms of how things are delivered to us and the rest, but generally speaking, in terms of our day-to-day operations, we've phased out single-use plastics completely.
single-use cups specifically? Is that-
Yes, so we've moved to biodegradable single-use cups. So the cups that we serve, you can put in the bio-waste bins, and they will go through that way. But we also introduced, and this was an initiative of the Speaker, but introduced a discount for people that bring their cup to get a coffee. So if you bring your own cup to get a coffee, you get a slightly cheaper kind of rate to try and encourage people to not even use those biodegradable cups going through. There's some interesting science on the biodegradable cup space. It's actually one of the areas that we will be talking with the EPA about what cutting edge means in this kind of space, because we're using the BioWare sort of program. Generally good feedback, but there are some studies that show that some of these things that are meant to be completely biodegradable aren't quite when they do the longitudinal studies over a long period of time. And so this is one of the areas where we're getting a bit more feedback from people to say, well, then what, if not that,
what?
And
this is part of the watch this space bit.
Yeah.
Right. It just strikes me that if you do have targets around getting rid of single-use plastics, it really is a bit of a closed ecosystem in terms of the consumption of food and drink in the Parliament, because people don't typically go outside with it. So
No, I agree entirely. For instance, one of the things we're looking at is rather than just saying bring your own cup, have a sort of a cup recycling kind of process where you get given a thing in a mug, but then you can drop the mug off at various places around the building. It'll be collected up, put through the dishwasher, reused again, that kind of thing. So we're not just restricting ourselves to single use as in better and better biodegradable cups, but is there, because you're right, we run pretty much a closed ecosystem, and so we're looking at trialling a whole bunch of stuff to see if we can get better.
You're looking at food as well as drink?
Food, all of the food that we produce now is currently in that BioWare sort of thing, so not single-use plastic, but we'll be also looking at that as well, focusing a little bit on the coffee cups first because it's a more obvious space where we can work out solutions, but we're very open to anything at all, and highly encourage people to rather than take something back to your desk, eat in one of our wonderful cafes or restaurants, and then you definitely won't have any single-use plastic come through.
On the issue of the target specifically, though, for the reduction in single-use plastics, is there a target?
Our target's zero. Our target is to get to the point
By
where
when?
we're not. The overarching targets are all the legislated targets, such as us by 2050, all that kind of stuff. I would have to get you. I'll see if I can get somebody to get what the specific target is around single-use plastic, but I do know our goal is zero. I'm just not quite sure what time frame we've put around it.
Okay. I had some questions around the ICO. I might get started on them now, but probably run out of time. Look, I suppose it's a recurring concern that I've had over several estimates, and that is around the confidence that people have in the structure or the perceived independence of the ICO, and this is no slight on the people that occupy the role, but this is a structural concern. Now, I think, Mr. Webb, more a question directed at you, but I mean, is it fair to say in the HR space that the standard guidance would typically be, if there's an internal investigation, that's only appropriate for minor matters or matters that don't involve senior leaders. But where they do involve complex or highly sensitive issues like bullying, like sexual harassment, like harassment, that typically the best standard or the best practice would be to go external and get the investigation done that way. I mean, is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, we do a combination. So I'm not speaking specifically about the ICO here. You asked about general HR practice. So we do a little bit of a combination. As you say, we have some in-house capability to look at, to do investigations where we have the authority to do an investigation. And just to be clear, I don't have the authority to investigate a member's behaviour, but I could, for instance, if it was another staffer in an office, I could investigate that. We have a combination of some excellent internal resources, and I'll do a shout out to Ian and Shelby and the team. They do fantastic work, but we also make use of external investigators as well. The decision around external investigators has a couple of different factors to it. The first is the extent to which there might be a perceived conflict of interest with somebody internally undertaking the investigation is a factor that we take into account. Whether or not we already have investigations on foot, so there's a workload dimension to it as well. And probably thirdly, the main consideration is, does this investigation require specialised skills that we don't have internally? So for instance, if someone was to raise a fraud related issue, we might go externally to get somebody with the forensic accounting experience to have a look at a fraud related matter. We don't have that expertise in-house. So it's a combination of those three things as how we determine whether we use an internal resource or an external resource going through. But I'll just really emphasise, we don't have the authority to investigate the behaviour or conduct of members. That is a space where the ICO sort of steps in.
I've got some more questions on that.
Sorry, I just should add to that. We do make it clear, for example, on the intranet, the discussion about the independent complaints officer, that we make it very clear that you need to know where to seek help, that the Human Services team can provide assistance in reporting bullying, sexual misconduct or sexual assault by calling 9230-2547, and it also discusses in depth the other agencies or authorities that might be able to help you, including New South Wales Police, the Anti-Discrimination Board New South Wales, Safe Work New South Wales, the ICAC and the Department of Premier and Cabinet. We're very conscious that no one should see the ICO as the be-all and end-all for these matters. If these matters are serious and they need to be reported to appropriate authorities and that there are breaches of the law, then that should happen, and we will support any complainant in any way that they need in order to make those that reporting happen.
Thank you, Mr. President.
And Chair, if I could just a little bit of extra information for Mr. Murphy. I'm very pleased to say that my team is so good that they've already, for any member who opts in to the use your swipe records, we have the capacity. We do now generate a daily report for that member on what was used.
And will that be emailed to each member?
Yeah, that's going through there on a regular basis. So they're already on it. Sometimes you ask for microwaves, sometimes you ask for reports on security swipe access. It's always great when we can provide
Yes. Toilets. But the time for questions is now with the opposition. Mr. Fagg.
Thank you. And since we're asking for things, Mr. Webb, and it's interesting the President just briefly mentioned the intranet. Now, it's been suggested to me, and I can't claim credit for this one, but one of the Brains Trust upstairs that's watching this broadcast made the point that whilst you have security concerns about using the previous interface of the website, perhaps on a internet service, could you not make it available on the intranet so that those people that are at Parliament can actually still find the things that they need to find, or can do the things that they used to do with some level of productivity?
Could I, so a couple of comments on that. Firstly, could I make the offer, Mr. Fang, of someone coming to your office and working through why you can't do the things
well,
that you are
it wouldn't
doing?
be necessarily my office, because...
or to anyone who may be
I tend
representing
to...
So there will be... look, I absolutely can't make it available externally. I can look into making it available internally, but I will have to take the resources that are currently working to improve the current website to look into that. And at the moment, up until now, I've made the call that we should be focusing on getting the long-term website up and working in the way that everyone wants it to as quickly as possible. But it is something that I could look into. There may be licensing issues and other things because we now no longer use that website. We are not continuing to pay the licensing fees for the old product and the like. So there'll be some licensing issues.
Doesn't sound like it was worth much. So that
I will look into it absolutely and see if there's something that we can do there. But my focus up until now and will continue to be to make the current website, the new website, work in the best way that possibly can.
And with that ask now communicated, I'll pass over to my colleague, Honourable Chris Ruff.
I'm getting texts asking for everyone's office to have that opportunity.
Not just Mr. Fangs.
I'm getting messages.
That offer has been on the table since day one, and we are very happy. If literally everyone in the building would like a one-on-one session, we may have to schedule them. But we are absolutely happy to come to anyone's office, sit down, work through how you can use the website. As I said at the start, we are finding about 40% of the queries that come in, when we work through them with somebody, turns out they can do the thing that they're wanting to do. It's a different, they've had a a long-term workaround that they've had in place. The fact that the site actually works in things like search, for instance, is not something people have factored into their workflows up until now. About 30% of what we have coming in are requests for new features that didn't exist on the old website, and the rest are legitimate. This is the way we want to use this new website. Can you please create a view that looks like this, or a thing there? So, for instance, the website does lazy loading, so it loads things as you scroll. That has increased the speed of the website significantly as a result. But if you're in the mode where you'd like everything loaded up on a screen so you can Control F to find something, it doesn't work as well. But the search actually works incredibly well. So we're trying to work through with people where should we put our effort in terms of enhancing the site, where does the functionality exist but you have to do things differently, and we're happy to do one-on-one sessions with every office in the place in order to work through all of that.
Can I say I'm also delighted by the number of people who are obviously watching this hearing. Mr. Rath.
Change of topic. I think I've asked this every legislature estimates this term of Parliament. If we could have an update on electronic SO52 returns. Mr.
Reynolds.
Right. I did note in the Premier's hearing, the head of Cabinet Office made a statement about that, and there's a slight nuance to it. Sorry, I'll just get the right. Essentially, we have our small SO52 team have developed, since the last estimates hearings, have developed detailed specifications for what's required for e-returns. Those specifications have been given to the equally small and under pressure SO52 team in the Cabinet Office for their feedback on whether the specifications that we require for e-returns will be workable for them. I think both teams at that level are very, very keen for e-returns to happen. But also those teams are the ones who are also under the pump dealing with all the SO52 returns that are coming in. So that would probably explain why we haven't got a final response from the Cabinet Office to date, is that they're busy dealing with all the business as usual for SO52 returns. So there has been work undertaken. There hasn't been a final proposal gone up to approval for the President and the Secretary of the Cabinet Office. That's at the moment awaiting further feedback, which we will then incorporate and send in a final proposal.
Are you looking at, or have you looked at, various e-discovery platforms that the law firms use, like Relativity, for instance, as a potential tool that we could, buy off the shelf or adopt?
I'm not familiar with that one, but we will have a look at it. The current proposal is to use a form of SharePoint, which at the moment we're using that for the Members Hub for committee documentation, and you can lock it down so that you have a secure access as well as having public access. And that's the complication with this, is that you need different levels of security, obviously, depending on what the documents are. So the proposal to use SharePoint would mean that it would be easily integratable with everything that you're all using and that we're all using. But we will certainly have a look at the e-discovery software to see if it does offer anything to us.
I can mention, I'm not sure about the specific tool that you've mentioned, but in the early days when we first started looking at this, we did review quite a few products used by law firms around discovery. Now, at the time, the specific requirements that were coming out around the process couldn't easily be incorporated into the tools that were available at the time, but I am conscious that was a few years ago, so maybe there might be some newer tools out there that we're less familiar with. So very happy to have a look at that in conjunction with the clerk, of course.
Thank you. And the only other thing, and you might need to take this on notice, Mr. Reynolds, is just if you could provide the committee with any figures about the increase in the number of SO52s over the years, both in the number of returns, the number of boxes, but also in terms of the amount of the time and cost and the increase in staffing requirements at your end, because it just goes to the point that I wanted to make before as well about it's not just the number of committee hours that's increased, which is an increased time to our office. It's also every time we do an SO52, we need any of the public documents for our staff to go through them, and then the privileged documents for us to go through. So it's an increased workload given the increased accountability and transparency that the House is determining as well. So anything you have on that would be very helpful.
Okay, so to save time, I could probably take on notice an overall figure, but I do have some of the stats here. The last Parliament was the all-time high watermark for SO52s. There were more than any other time in the history of the council, but this Parliament is the second highest number of orders made, and it's gone on an upward trajectory. It started slowly, but we're now approaching the levels that we were getting in the last Parliament, and you're right in that the complexity of it has increased. With the new standing orders, the category of personal information, which is the third category, but they're treated as privileged documents that can be released if without a dispute if a member requests it. That's led to a whole lot of complex issues that haven't arisen before in terms of has something already been provided in redacted form in the public documents, or is it only available in the personal information category in the clerk's office? The workload of the very small team that we have supporting it has dramatically increased in this Parliament, and I've had to put extra temporary resources on to try to support that. But you're quite right, the complexity of SO52s has certainly increased in this Parliament. The numbers were at the highest level in the previous Parliament, but they're also at very high levels in this one.
Yeah, thank you. Anything you can provide on notice would be very helpful. I might just move to the gatehouse now, and the rationale behind the upgrade and change, and why it had to be done now rather than could it have waited until the break over Christmas or the election period, for instance.
So I'll give some preliminary comments and then throw to Mr. Webb for some more detail. The two questions, I'll handle the second one first in terms of the timing. The answer is it is being done over the break in the run-up to the election, but we have to start it now in order to, there's a lot of work to be done, in order for it to be done and open and ready by the time Parliament resumes after the election. It needed to start now. So that's the answer for the time frame. We wanted to do it in a way that minimised the amount of disruption as possible. Obviously, that time between the rising of Parliament in November and an election is clearly the longest gap that we ever have in a term for doing these sorts of improvements, and so that's why we went with that. In terms of why, two foundational issues. One is accessibility, that they simply, both the old gatehouse and on the northern end and the southern turnstiles were just not acceptable in terms of allowing particularly people in wheelchairs, but in people with a range of accessibility issues in and out of the Parliament, and that needed to be fixed. The second is for a range of security reasons, the way that both of those options are currently operated weren't ideal, and Mr. Webb's made the point before, and we do at each estimates that we're loath to go into too many details about that, but it needed to be updated for that reason. The third point, which is not the reason why we're doing it, but is an excellent functional add-on extra, is that members will be able to both enter and exit through both gatehouses rather than needing to walk all the way up to the northern gatehouse to come into the Parliament. And thank you very much for that affirmation, and we think that that's a terrific thing. But I'll throw to Mr. Webb for some
productivity enhancing measure.
Absolutely. I'll throw to Mr. Webb for some more details, because obviously this is a significant issue.
Yeah. So just to reinforce, yes, the timing, we worked backwards from the potential opening for Parliament time, and we would have preferred, of course, to do all the work in the break, but we needed to get started, especially on the southern side. There was some fairly significant. We have to do archaeology and things like that when we're breaking sort of ground that hasn't been broken for a long time, and so we just needed to get started on some of that. You'll notice that most of the activity at the moment is focused in that southern part outside of your chamber, in order to guarantee that we would finish before the opening of Parliament next year. Yes, all of the reasons that the President's talked about. I'd also say there's a further safety issue. One of the pieces of feedback we've got is that in exiting the Parliament in the evenings, in particular, especially with the later night sittings, people were sort of exiting and then having to stand on Macquarie Street, wait for an Uber or a taxi or things along those lines. If it was wet weather or from a safety point of view, the only option is to pretty much just stand on the footpath and wait. This new southern gatehouse will also give an option for someone to stand in the gatehouse waiting for, say, an Uber or a taxi to turn up, and then head out there as well. So there's a safety dimension to it as well going through. But yes, the primary purposes were all around both accessibility and security, and making sure that the gatehouse itself is built in a heritage appropriate way.
Also the flow of the number of people too. I mean, one of the things we don't want, for pretty obvious reasons, is lines of school children along Macquarie Street, whereas this, because there are going to be in the northern gatehouse 2 flow-through areas rather than just one, hopefully will significantly speed up the amount of time we have school children standing out on the street, and in fact whenever they're accused of people trying to get into the Parliament. Very much the case.
Thank you. A few more light-hearted catering questions from it's to that point of the day where we're coming up to the end where we need to ask these for the people listening, playing at home. Has any consideration been given for a fresh sandwich bar at Cafe Quorum?
Mr. Webb.
We've given some consideration to it. It was when we were re-looking at Cafe Quorum, we did have a look at whether we could do something like a fresh sandwich bar. We couldn't quite logistically fit it in to the space. A couple of people have made suggestions about something that might be a bit more portable. That's something we've got on the radar for the future, but I don't think it would fit inside Cafe Quorum at the moment. It would have to be some alternative way of looking at it, but it is something that's on our radar. Can't promise anything though, unlike microwaves and the like.
All good, as long as you don't take away the meat pies and the Kirk's Pasito from Mr. Fang in the process.
And I'm sure I don't think they sell it down there. They should.
I'm sure we could look into that, Mr. Fang. Also, I
wouldn't
just
pay
mention
the prices.
But hopefully the feedback of the sandwiches that we are producing now, we did make a change in those sandwiches with the move to the new cafe, and we've been getting some very good feedback about the sandwiches going forward, as well as the salad. So I hope that is replicated in the feedback that you've been receiving as well, but excellent in-house.
So we make all of the sandwiches internally now, whereas previously we often had been bringing them in externally, and I think the quality increase, as in all aspects of catering, has been outstanding.
Yes, the viewers at home do appreciate the new sandwiches.
Oh,
Just
excellent. We can
so
recommend the Italian
you
club.
get
The Italian club.
feedback in real time.
That's excellent.
The viewers at home are a little bit concerned about the quantity and the size of the fruit, though. If that's something that you could look at, in particular the bananas. That's something just to raise.
I will blush and admit to you all that I have not been measuring the fruit recently, so I will definitely take that up.
And the other question is, how many people have ordered the terrine that is on the menu at Cafe Quorum? We assume that it's probably pretty low in terms of the customer uptake.
I like terrine.
It could very well be, and as you know, the menu in Cafe Quorum changes every couple of weeks, and so if it was a low-selling item, you probably won't see it return anytime soon. But I would like to give a shout-out to Vanessa, our executive chef, and the whole team, and for trying something. It's always good to try something
I
new and
personally am a fan of terrine.
Excellent.
But I assume I'm probably in a customer base of one.
Also, we hope that people are enjoying the pizzas that we now have.
Yes, on
pizza.
Wednesdays.
Absolutely.
Yes, that's right. If they prove to be popular, we will extend that further. So
Thank you. No, I think they are quite popular. I've got positive feedback on the pizzas.
Fantastic.
So, and then in terms of suggestions generally on catering, what's the best way of? Is there an easy way for people to submit? I know you won't be able to take up every single suggestion, or the menu will end up being enormous. But if there is an easy way to submit
Are you trying to make
particular
budget estimates
suggestions.
So yes, absolutely. So there is feedback mechanisms through the cafe and the restaurant itself that you can put things through. But also at any time, please just there's the DPS catering email address for any internal people watching. I'll look down the camera. There's a DPS internal DPS catering email address. Please feel free, if you can't make use of the other feedback mechanisms, make sure you send us an email and we will definitely take it into account. And for the person who has submitted, I think something in the order of 7 to 8 matcha queries, and I suspect it's the one person, we do now have matcha available for you.
I've got a turmeric latte request.
There you go, turmeric latte, fantastic. We are listening and we will look at that. But for that matcha person out there, if you're listening, we got you. It's there.
Nothing says labour like matcha.
Sam Tedeschi's just texted me saying there has been low terrine uptake since Don Harlan's departure.
Couldn't possibly comment.
They're all the catering questions from me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rath.
Just before I hand to the government, I have a question, and that is regarding the domain. I know it's not the parliamentary precinct.
Not yet. We might annex it.
Well, that isn't a bad idea. I mean, first of all, it is an area that the Parliament does staff use. It's the largest green space available to us. It's where we often have press conferences, famously under the tree of little knowledge. But over the last few months, it's been out of bounds because, from my understanding, there was an event there, a resurfacing. That's been a protracted exercise. Is there any interaction between the Parliament and, I assume, it's Botanic Gardens, when these works and projects are scheduled?
So in this, not always, but in this particular case, they did reach out to us after they started the work, but I think they started to get a lot of requests for information coming out, so they reached out to people in the precinct. So this particular piece of work that's going on at the moment, as you know, they do lots of events there. They usually have to do a bit of resurfacing. What they've found is that the water drainage in that part of the domain was not working very well, and that was causing more damage and requiring more fixing. So the work in the last little while hasn't been in response to a single event. They've been essentially redoing the drainage patterns for that whole period of space. They're then now re-sowing it all, and I think they're at the point now where they're just waiting for the grass to be substantively anchored before they let people coming back onto it again. So this was a very specific task that was based around improvements to the drainage management in the domain coming through.
And the last question I have is, In terms of the plans for the gardens within the Parliament, so the rooftop gardens, has there ever been a suggestion that we could consider like our own vegetable gardens or something of the like in terms of a...
Well, delightfully, we do have that. We have native ingredients which we grow in our rooftop garden, which
I know
we
that
use
the Speaker's
in
garden,
the catering.
I know that the Speaker's garden has like edible plants.
So does the rooftop,
And so does the rooftop,
Yes.
does it?
And in fact, Vanessa uses the ingredients from the rooftop garden in the cooking in the restaurant and the cafe as well.
Excellent.
So just really fantastic. It's focused on native ingredients. So and that I don't know if anyone had a chance to attend the NAIDOC high tea that we ran on NAIDOC week, but a lot of the native ingredients that went into those creations came from the rooftop garden going through. Really great initiative.
Also, we've just had the Commonwealth Youth Parliament here with people from jurisdictions from across the world. And the final official dinner, Vanessa organised for every table to have a collection of native ingredients and herbs and so on that they could take back to their, assuming biosecurity allows, that they could take back to their countries, which was just a really lovely way a really tactile way of that engagement. So it's terrific.
Thank you. The government.
Thank you.
Dr. Kane.
Mr. Webb, I've got a few sort of follow-up questions from earlier. You mentioned when you were talking about the website and trying to assess how it's working and what functions people need and searches and whatnot, that you used the data, you collected the data from searches, and it just made me, just out of sheer curiosity, ask what data do you get, and have we ticked a box that says we give you permission to access data? Or?
Yes, in the sort of IT policy and the rest, that is in there. But just to be really clear, the data we use is completely de-identified, like to the nth degree. We're really just looking at what kind of search terms are people using for the purposes of optimising the searches. We don't retain any of the information after we do the initial assessment, and there is no identifying information attached to it at all.
Right.
Not even the IP address that you're coming from. It is completely de-identified and is only used for the purposes of enhancing. It's that question on notice thing I was saying before. That's the kind of stuff we're doing, and then we're putting the data aside. Okay. We definitely don't retain. We take privacy very seriously, and people are right to ask those questions. It is an incredibly important space.
No, thank you. Just that was curiosity just piqued earlier, and then I do have a question back to the consultation about MOPs and the like. For quite a few estimates now, we've been asking about the various reviews. Can you just release the reviews? Because we've now talked about, we can summarise it, and can you just release the reviews for people to see? I think the Bent review, I've forgotten what the other one is. Yeah, I'm just curious as to what it is. And again, okay, you would de-identify answers and whatnot, but I just am curious as to why.
I know we've canvassed this in previous estimates, so and in the interest of time, I'll try and do this as quickly as possible. You're absolutely right. There's been different waves of consultation. Sometimes it's been badged under, let's say, the Bent review or the Edwards review, etc. Sometimes it's been direct consultation with people. We had found all the way through that each of the specific pieces of work had significant limitations in them. Some of them were privacy related, like it was very hard for the report to report on things without talking about stuff that would allow people to be identified. Sometimes it was the scope, like the report just didn't go far enough in looking at a variety of things. So
sometimes
what we ended
the number of people
who participated in it being too small, and us not being convinced it was a representative sample, and the report's author not being able to convince us that it was a representative sample. So all of those kind of things has meant that what we've tried to do is take all of that feedback, take the pieces of it that are valid or statistically valid if it's a statistics thing, or a representatively valid if it's a representative thing, and pull it all together. But the releasing of any individual report, we just don't think shows the whole picture. And I would say now, especially those early reports, are very dated as well. So that's been the rationale before.
No, thank you for that. In terms of sort of best practice for getting people involved in feedback.
Yeah.
Not reporting back to them on the it has been, I think, maybe a weakness of that consultation.
Yeah, I think also what we've tried to do is put out summaries of feedback and the like, but I absolutely 100% take the point. We did actively consider that, the balance between releasing the reports with all those limitations versus the concerns people would have with not having that feedback loop going in. In the end, the balance we decided on was to put out summaries of what came out so that people could see the substantive issues without putting out the detailed reports. It was something we went back and forth on a lot, to be honest, before we landed on
I guess we're also used to reading things politically, that not having something released always is like, well, why isn't... What's the bit you're not doing?
There is no bit like that. We want to get this right. We want it to be reflective of what the current work environment is. We're, as Mr. Webb has explained before, we've incorporated with the roles, for example, all of the feedback that we got. But this is a constant living thing, and we want to ensure that we get it right and to reflect the current work environment and the current Parliament as it sits. And so that's what we're trying
Thank
to
you.
do.
And one last question from me. Mr. Webb, you mentioned that in considering the capability framework, that you have, was it that you have engaged someone who is skilled in the capability?
We have people in the organisation who are trained in evaluation against the... when it comes to do the work for informing the budget bid, I'm likely, and I guess this goes to Mr. Namva's point from earlier, my intention is to bring in somebody, an external person to engage with those evaluations, just to make sure that they're being looked at very even-handedly. But we do have capability within the place, so I'm confident with the work that the team has done in terms of setting those average capability levels. But when it comes to actually saying this is how much money we need, I'll be looking to bring somebody externally in just to make sure that we've got like very, very clear, very, very independent sort of views on what that translation to essentially to the Clark grade model is going forward.
Thank you.
Mr. Fang, I might just mention briefly that the last 2 years with the PRT, as you know, there was a determination, and that determination was overridden. The previous period of time you're talking about, there was an act that was introduced to stop pay rises, and then the tribunal did its work, and it had to give regard to that as the law of the land at the time. So it wasn't an overriding of a determination, it was an input to the determination process in the first period.
Understood. I mean, an overriding of the...
I've just got a follow-up in relation to the question I asked earlier that was taken on notice about the number of staff who are employed full-time versus being on contract in each, what do we call it, a sub-department, I suppose, because it's the department, but in each of those sub-departments. Can you provide a breakdown of that, not just for this last financial year, but for the previous 10 financial years?
10 financial years, should be able to. I'll go back as far as I can, but with the intent of 10 years, there has been significant change in the staffing profile for DPS over the last 10 years, like an overall growth through that period of time. So the numbers from 10 years ago bear very little resemblance to the numbers of today, but those are the facts rather than anything else, so happy to do that.
Could I just ask a question about the special constables? We've talked about this before, and I just wondered, there seems to have been quite a turnover quite recently, and I just wondered if we could get the same on notice again, information that we've had before about extent of turnover, let's say over the past year. There just in talking to them as they're coming, there seems to be quite a turnover. So I just wanted to see if we could track that against what we've
Yeah,
done.
I've certainly seen quite a few new special constables recently, and we did an induction program recently. I'm just conscious they're employed by New South Wales Police,
Yes,
and
yeah.
so we might just need to liaise with New South Wales Police about because we don't keep records of the specific special constables. We have a MOU with police, and they have to provide a certain amount. So we won't have that information directly, but we can liaise with New South Wales Police.
We'll make inquiries and give you what we can.
Thank you, appreciate it.
I have a quick question about the parents' room on level 7. I'm advised that it is a great public resource, so I've been asked to thank you for providing it. With one minor request, and that is mothers in particular can be at various stages of undress when after breastfeeding or pumping, and there is just a modest request, I think, for a mirror to be placed in the parents' room if possible.
I should have asked. I was going to ask at the very start if anyone had any requests for small appliances or various things to tell me at the start, so I could try and magically make it happen by the end.
Consider one submitted. Parents' room level 7.
Absolutely, we'll consider it done.
And sorry, I've just realised I had one.
Now that you've got the request there, it's like, right, away we go.
No. Well, no, it's a follow-up about special constables that I missed when I was asking about special constables. A couple of estimates ago, you gave a report back to us, an answer back about the refurbishment works to level 5.
On level 5, yeah.
And that seemed to be the first tranche of work. And then the answer we got back is the time frame for these upgrades, including bathrooms,
Yes,
etc.,
that's
is
correct.
yet at the time, and this was last year. It was yet to be determined. It would depend in part on what is discovered in the first phase. Has that all been done by now?
Yes, that's right. So coming out of that first phase, we also did those investigative work. So we now have a plan of action for updating the bathrooms and some of the other areas that weren't in a first phase. I wonder if I have... Margaret's doing excellent work. 5 change rooms. Yes, we've got a budget for this year to make those changes. So I think the intent is to do most of that over the parliamentary recess.
Right, okay. Thank you for that.
So, which is fantastic.
I just wanted to return to the ICO, and then that's it from me. And I'll probably be more direct, just in the interests of time. But just more particularly in relation to those aspects of behaviour that were of particular concern to Broderick during her process. There was a real structural concern about the way the ICO is composed. It's not the person who occupies the role, but just the sheer structure. And the concern is ostensibly around the perception of independence, or a lack of trust in that process because of the power imbalances in this building. From my perspective, it would just make sense with respect to those areas of behaviour that were of concern to Broderick, for the default front door being an external investigation process. Has any thought been given to whether or not complaints of that nature can by default be referred to an external body, not the ICO, given the concerns that were documented in the Broderick report itself around these complaints?
I mean, this was a resolution of the Parliament, and so our suspicion is it probably would require an amendment to the resolution for this to be an automatic trigger. I do note, though, that within the protocols which were released in November 22, it says that obviously there are all of the different options for people to be able to pursue already, as I detailed before. But under the protocols, it says at 17.2 that the ICO may discuss with the complainant whether they have made or may wish to make a complaint to other relevant bodies charged with the administration of the relevant legislation. My view on this overwhelmingly is that it's up to the individual. It's up to the complainant how they wish to deal with a particular complaint. We as a Parliament need to provide them with all avenues to be able to do that, whether that is through the ICO or through a range of other processes. I hear what you're saying, but my view, and Mr. Reynolds may have something further to add, but my view is that if it was going to be an automatic default that this is what happens, there would need to be a change to the overarching resolution of the houses. But Mr. Reynolds, I don't know if you want to add anything further.
Yeah, well, one thing is in the Members' Code of Conduct, which Clause 10 talks about a member must treat their staff and each other and all those working in Parliament with dignity, courtesy and respect. It states very clearly after that Section 22B of the Anti-Discrimination Act makes it unlawful for a member to sexually harass a workplace participant or another member in the workplace, and so there is, in the Members' Code of Conduct, there's a clear pathway to an external body in the case of sexual harassment. But the other thing is that one of the reasons that I understood that both houses established the ICO, and it was before the Broderick Review, was that staff in particular are concerned that if they make a complaint, particularly to an outside body, they're immediately the focus of a media story or even questions in the House and discussions in the House, and that the purpose of the Independent Complaints Officer in relation to bullying and harassment was to provide a pathway for particularly a member of staff, but also a member if they wished, to pursue a complaint against a member in a way that could be resolved confidentially without exposing them to any media attention. And that's a really big factor for people that work here who aren't members.
I suppose the concern that I've got is, I'll revisit the Broderick report. That certainly, it's not my recollection, but I do recall her being quite explicit about the concern people had around utilising the ICO process because it was not external. But we've got varying points of recollection there. But the concern that I've got is that if there is a lingering mistrust in the process, not because of the person occupying the role, but because of the structure, people are not going to use that front door to make the complaint in the first instance before they're then referred to other bodies. And using an external investigator for these purposes is not to just have an external investigator for its own sake, but these are really niche areas that need to be investigated, where procedural fairness needs to be afforded and trust needs to be given to the complainant and to the respondent, frankly. I suppose I would just be interested in whether or not you could perhaps take on notice and look at different mechanisms that could be utilised for these specific areas of complaint. Not all complaints, but just the ones that were of particular concern to Broderick, but particularly with a view to other jurisdictions. I think the UK, I could be wrong, but I think the UK have a default mechanism of an external investigative body for these sorts of things.
They have the Parliamentary Standards Commissioner that it's a bit like the ICO on steroids. They have the person is an independent officer of the Parliament, and there's a committee underneath it, the Standards Committee, which I think is separate from the Privileges Committee. One of the concerns that I recall, and it's a long time since I've read the Broderick report, was that the scope of the Independent Complaints Officer was too limited, that there were complaints that the ICO couldn't deal with, and that one of the recommendations was to expand the scope of the ICO. But you're also right that there was reference to outside external bodies.
Yeah, the short answer is we're happy to look at this. I mean, the foundational issue for us is that we want anyone who has any concerns in this place to feel to have those concerns addressed appropriately. A, that they feel that they're addressed, and B, that they are addressed, particularly if there's obviously a serious or a legal issue that needs to be addressed immediately. I understand the point that you're making. It's a reasonable point. We'll consider the issue and have a look at other jurisdictions and come back to you.
Thank you, Mr. President. No more? No? All right. Well, thank you very much, everyone. Thank you to our witnesses for your attendance today. We deeply appreciate it. The Secretariat will be in contact in due course with any matters taken on notice or supplementary questions. But that then concludes today's hearing. Again, thank you very much for your attendance, and thank you to everyone for your assistance today.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And if I might just say very briefly, this is obviously the last budget estimates for this this Parliament, and I just wanted to thank both you, this committee, and particularly the staff of the Parliament for the extraordinary job that they do throughout the last 4 years. It is an incredible honour to be able to work with these people, but I know that they support every single one of us in so many ways, and I wanted to publicly put on the record just how appreciative I am, and I know we all are, for the job that everybody behind the scenes does in this place.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. President. We all agree with those sentiments wholeheartedly, so thank you very much. And everyone, that is us done for today. We'll see some of you tomorrow.
Oh, yeah.